Chapter 3699. The attack of the legendary Great Rock Sovereign caused all the cultivators in Cloud Sky City to feel despair. It has to be said that the true ruler of the Cloud Sky mountain range was the Great Rock Sovereign. The White Wolf Sovereign and the Demonic Ape Sovereign were merely its subordinates. Roar! At this moment an angry roar was heard. The city lord of Cloud Sky City, who had been sent flying by the White Wolf Sovereign's claw, shook off the sand and stones on his body and rushed out from the collapsed mountain. The city lord's body emitted an endless amount of immortal light. He shot up into the sky and saw the rock being pushed back by a giant chaotic hand. He was inexplicably shocked. Could it be that Gu Fei was so powerful that he could repel the rock Venerable beast? How was this possible? The city lord knew that Gu Fei was an outsider. When a large number of outsiders suddenly appeared, he realized what was going on. A trial had begun. At the city lord's level of cultivation, he naturally knew that these outsiders came from the same place called the Ancestral Realm. In the eyes of the trial takers from the Ancestral Realm, the city lord's group was merely a group of natives. Even though the city lord was an immortal, he was only a native with a slightly higher cultivation. After all, there were many experts in the Ancestral Realm. Immortals were like mortals in the mortal realm, the lowest existences. Of course, the lowest existences in the Ancestral Realm were mortals who had yet to become immortals. Everyone wanted to become strong and become a big shot in the world. However, no one could casually succeed. The competition in the Ancestral Realm was even more intense and tragic. This time, there were more than 100,000 young cultivators participating in the entrance trial of the Ying-Tian sect in the Ancestral Mountain Range. However, not many of them could actually pass the trial. Countless people died or were injured during the trial. Of course, some people were extremely lucky and obtained some treasures or even inheritances from their predecessors. Although the trial wasn't a complete world, there were still extremely powerful natives here. The city lord of Cloud Sky City was an immortal. An immortal's inheritance was also a priceless treasure in the eyes of these trial takers. Roar! At this moment, the great rock beast sovereign raised its head to the sky and let out a long cry. A terrifying sound wave spread out, causing the entire world to tremble under the impact of the sound wave. Some of the ferocious birds that had retreated far into the sky were directly stunned by the sound waves that spread out and directly fell from the sky. Even the great rocks were hiding far away, not daring to get close. In this way, the mortals and cultivators in the city escaped a calamity. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. These rock beasts were too fierce and too strong. They could only be killed with spirit tools. It was impossible for an ordinary cultivator to possess a spiritual weapon, let alone an ordinary mortal. After the rock beast's rampage, the entire Cloudy Sky City was gloomy and gloomy. The air was filled with the pungent smell of blood. Corpses of rocks could be seen everywhere in the city. The sinister corpses looked very frightening. Although many of the rock beasts were shot to death, the number of mortals and cultivators who died under the claws of the rock beasts was even higher. Even the outsiders who came for the trial were killed. Terrifying sound waves spread out, and a good number of the mortals in the city without cultivation bases were instantly quaked to death. The cultivators with cultivation bases were shaken to the point that their blood streams roiled. As for the weaker cultivators, they bled from their 7 orifices. It was an incomparably ferocious sight. At this moment, a cold snort came from the city lord's mansion. The sound wasn't loud, but it dispelled the terrifying sound wave produced by the great rock beast sovereign. The cultivators who were lying on the ground in fear of the great rock beast sovereign were directly killed by the sound wave because they were too close to it. Those who survived were cultivators who had reached the postnatal realm. This was definitely a one-sided massacre. In the eyes of an existence like the great rock beast sovereign, cultivators and mortals in the city were all like ants. A single sneeze from the great rock beast sovereign could kill countless people in seconds. In the entire Cloudy Sky City, Only the city lord was worthy of the great rock beast sovereign's attention. But now the great rock beast sovereign was dumbfounded. He was sent flying out of the city with a single slap. How is this possible? There can't be such a powerful existence in Cloudy Sky City. That person is definitely not the city lord. Kill! At this time, the city lord of Cloudy Sky City let out a furious roar. The immortal weapon on his body instantly turned into a sharp sword energy. In the next moment, the city lord of Cloudy Sky City turned into a shocking sword light and slashed at the mountain-like great rock beast sovereign. Swoosh! The sword light pierced through the void and arrived in front of the great rock beast sovereign in an instant. Roar! The rock beast Venerable roared angrily and slapped its claw at the incoming sword light. The extremely swift and fierce sword light was slapped away by the rock beast Venerable. The sword light swept through a mountain ridge in the distance, slicing off the top of the entire mountain ridge. A rumbling sound came from the mountain ridge. In the next moment, the sword light disappeared and the city lord of Cloudy Sky City appeared in the void. He stared at the great rock beast sovereign in the distance, with a trace of blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. The great rock beast sovereign was too powerful. The white wolf beast sovereign and the magical ape beast sovereign were like children compared to it. They were not on the same level at all. The city lord of Cloudy Sky City wanted to escape, but he was reluctant to do so because his children were still in the city. Both Yun Shi and Yun Ao were his flesh and blood, especially Yun Ao, who was already a demigod and was likely to become a real immortal. The city lord of Cloudy Sky City naturally could not give up on such excellent children. However, at this time, the white wolf beast sovereign and the magical ape beast sovereign had already approached the city lord of Cloudy Sky City. Both of them were injured. However, this completely aroused the ferocity of the two beast sovereigns. At the end of the day, beast sovereigns were still beasts. Once their ferocity was aroused, they would become even more ferocious and difficult to deal with. You evil beasts, why are you still here? Are you ignoring my brother Fei's words? At this moment, a loud roar came from the city lord's mansion. Roar! High up in the sky, outside the city, the great rock beast sovereign roared. How dare someone look down on me? I am the king of all beasts in the Cloudy Sky mountain range. The great rock beast sovereign was enraged. It took a deep breath, and its stomach immediately swelled up. A surge of fire energy emerged from its body. Boom! The great rock beast sovereign opened its mouth, and a terrifying aura of destruction immediately burst out from its mouth. An endless amount of fire energy condensed, and in the next moment, a huge fireball shot out from its mouth and headed toward the Cloudy Sky City below like a cannonball. Everyone in the Cloudy Sky City was dumbfounded when they saw this terrifying scene in the sky. Chapter 3700. The infuriated rock beast sovereign made its move. Its terrifying aura spread in all directions. All the mortals and cultivators in the city were dumbfounded. A fireball that looked like a burning meteorite came crashing down from the sky towards the city lord mansion of Cloudy City. The power of the fire element that erupted from the fireball was extremely powerful. The space around the fireball was being destroyed. If the rock beast sovereign were to spit out this fireball, the entire Cloudy City would be turned into a sea of fire, let alone the city lord mansion. Mortals and cultivators in the city would be burned to ashes. Even the most powerful cultivators would be destroyed in both body and soul. There was no way they could survive. That lunatic in the city lord mansion is going to provoke the rock beast sovereign. We are all going to die. When the nobles in the city saw the fireball flying towards them, they all cursed Gu Fei's 18 generations of ancestors in their hearts. Some nobles hurriedly hid underground. The mortals and cultivators in the city looked at the fireball descending from the sky in despair. No one in the city would have a chance to escape from such an attack. This was the terror of the rock beast sovereign. A casual attack from it could cause terrifying destruction. Rumble. As the fireball reached the sky above the Sky Market City, the entire sky shook. To all the mortals and cultivators in the city, this scene was simply earth-shattering. "Grandpa, I'm scared." A little girl hid in the arms of an old hunter, not daring to look at the scene in the sky. The old hunter gently patted the little girl's back and comforted her with a smile. However, when the old man looked up at the fireball descending from the sky, his face was filled with despair. The little girl thought that she would be safe under the protection of the adults. Little did she know that it was useless. Roar! Seeing this, the city lord's eyes turned red. He immediately turned into a sword light and rushed over to the fireball. In an instant, he caught up to the fireball and stood in front of it. The white wolf beast sovereign and the demonic ape beast sovereign did not stop him. In their opinion, the city lord was committing suicide by daring to be the rock beast sovereign's fireball. Damn it! The city lord's body was surrounded by immortal light. He pushed his hands forward with all his might. An immortal shield appeared in front of him and collided with the incoming fireball. Boom! With a loud bang, the Fire Cloud City Master's body shook violently. The immortal shield that he condensed was instantly smashed by the fireball. The terrifying divine fire instantly burned the Cloud Sky City Master's body. The next moment, the clothes on Cloud Heaven City Master's arms turned into ashes. His hair was set on fire, and his body was covered in black smoke as he fell from the sky. There were no protective immortal lights or immortal robes. They were all destroyed by the divine fire that erupted from the fireball. "Father!" Seeing this scene, the Yun siblings, who were already hiding outside the mansion, were shocked. Yun Ao immediately flew into the sky and caught the falling Yun Tian City Lord. Yun Ao landed on the ground with Yun Tian City Master in his arms. Yun Tian City Master was barely breathing. His flesh had been burnt to a crisp, and some of his bones were exposed. The Yun Tian City Master was seriously injured and dying, which made the Yun siblings angry and sad. They looked at the fireballs that continued to rain down from the sky, and all of them despaired. Even the Cloud Sky City Master couldn't withstand an attack from the rock beast, let alone the others. The city lord of Cloud Sky City was an immortal god. He was the most powerful immortal god in the vicinity of Cloud Sky City. "How dare you ignore my brother Fei?" Inside the mansion, Yang Zhan was also shocked by this scene. How dare these beasts make a move? The armored barbaric Ox King was already shivering on the ground. It was terrified to the extreme. In front of the rock sovereign beast, this beast king didn't even dare to have any thoughts of resisting. Whoosh! At this moment, a chaotic, primordial divine light rushed out from the mansion and entered Yang Zhan's body. "Brother Fei, this..." Yang Zhan was shocked, but in the next moment he felt a powerful force forming in his body and condensing. It was as if he had turned into an immortal god. An illusory figure appeared on his body. "Go!" Gu Fei's voice came from the mansion. "Ha! All right, let's kill him then." Yang Zhan laughed heartily as he soared into the sky, charging towards the fireball descending from the sky. Yun Ao and the others were stunned by this scene. Yang Zhan threw a punch at the fireball. Everyone thought he was crazy. Even the Cloud Sky City Master wasn't a match for the rock beast. But this guy who wasn't even an immortal dared to attack. He must be tired of living. However, just when everyone thought that Yang Zhan was overestimating himself, Yang Zhan's fist had already landed on the fireball. In the next moment, a loud boom sound rang out. To everyone's disbelief, the fireball exploded from Yang Zhan's punch. An endless amount of divine fire exploded and was blown into the sky by the force of Yang Zhan's punch. The rocks were unlucky. The rocks that were burned by the divine fire turned into a pile of ashes that dissipated into the void. The white wolf beast sovereign and the magical ape beast sovereign were blind. How was this possible? How could this guy destroy the rock beast sovereign's fireball? At this time, Yang Zhan's body still emitted the aura of the peak of the acquired realm, but the combat strength he displayed was definitely not weaker than an immortal. How could something so strange happen? His combat strength was seriously inconsistent with his cultivation level. This guy was like a puppet that was being controlled by someone else. There was a powerful force supporting him. This was a kind of blessing that could be used to strengthen a person with a weak cultivation level, allowing that person to explode with shocking combat strength in a short period of time. This was a small matter for Gu Fei. However, it was strange and impossible for the cultivators in the trial ground. Even the great rock beast sovereign was taken aback. "Damn it! I told you evil creatures to scram. If you don't, then come over and accept your death." After destroying the fireball, Yang Zhan arrived in front of the rock beast sovereign. He stared at the rock disdainfully. At this moment, he felt that he could even destroy the heaven and earth with a single punch. This feeling of supremacy surprised and delighted Yang Zhan. He was more and more in awe of Gu Fei. The rock beast sovereign didn't say anything. It responded to Yang Zhan with action. A huge claw directly slapped towards Yang Zhan. The claw was even bigger than a small mountain. If it hit, even an immortal would be injured. Yang Zhan only laughed twice and directly rushed towards the claw. Like a divine arrow, he instantly pierced through the great rock beast Venerable's claw, causing a cloud of blood to spray out. How is this possible? Everyone's jaws dropped as they looked at the scene in the sky in disbelief. Chapter 3701. Wang Qin had actually blasted apart the head of the heavenly market city's old man Zheng with one shot, instantly killing off Zheng Peng, a half-step gold immortal. Seeing that, everyone who witnessed it under the night sky became dumbfounded. How is this possible? A figure in the shadows of a pavilion in the distance muttered to himself. His voice was trembling. This person was none other than Xia Wei, the prince of Great Xia dynasty. His face turned extremely ugly when he saw Wang Qin instantly killing Elder Zheng. Lin Xian and the others were already stunned. Zheng Peng, Elder Zheng, someone who could stand on equal footing with City Lord Lin Yu, was instantly killed off by an unknown heavenly immortal using a special immortal artifact. How was that possible? If they hadn't witnessed it with their own eyes, they would never have believed it. Wang Qin was only a first-stage heaven immortal. In front of a half-step golden immortal, he was as insignificant as an ant. No one would believe that an ant could kill an elephant. That immortal weapon. Under the night sky, the cultivators who were hiding in the dark began to stare at the immortal sniper rifle that Wang Qin had just refined. Only he could use such an immortal sniper rifle. Even if others obtained an emperor's immortal sniper rifle, they wouldn't know how to use it. However, the power displayed by the sniper rifle in Wang Qin's hand was too powerful. Therefore, no matter what kind of immortal weapon it was, it attracted everyone's attention. Who else wants my life? Wang Qin held the emperor's immortal sniper rifle and glanced around. Everyone who met his gaze lowered their heads. Who else would dare to take Wang Qin's life now? No one said a word. The onlookers who were hiding and watching the show also stopped eating. Everyone looked at Wang Qin in a different light. Could it be that this guy refined such an immortal weapon in the #1 crafting room in the Heaven series? This is an emperor's immortal weapon. It's not something that just anyone can refine. At this moment, Feng Jianyang suddenly said from afar, "What?" The golden immortal elder of the Tao Enlightenment Tower was shocked. He then said to Feng Jianyang, "Go to the #1 crafting room in the Heaven series immediately." "Yes, Uncle Master." The shopkeeper of the Tao Enlightenment Tower, Feng Jianyang, immediately turned and left. Soon, Feng Jianyang returned angrily. "What happened?" the golden immortal elder hurriedly asked. "The crafting furnace in Heaven and Earth #1 crafting room has been destroyed," Feng Jianyang said with a bitter expression. The golden immortal elder was dumbfounded. The refinement furnace in the #1 refinement room was destroyed? That was a king's celestial weapon. How could it be destroyed? The golden immortal elder felt like he was going crazy. He had actually lost a king immortal weapon. But very quickly, the golden immortal elder calmed down. He, Ren Tianqing, was also a prominent figure in the southern immortal domain. A king's immortal weapon was something that even he coveted. He was sure that Wang Chun had destroyed his crafting furnace, which was also a king's celestial weapon, when he was refining the king's celestial weapon. That crafting furnace was the treasure of the Sky Market City's Dao Comprehension Tower. Now that it had been destroyed, it was definitely a great loss for the Sky Market City's Dao Comprehension Tower. King's celestial artifact, the eyes of the golden immortal elder, Rin Tianqing, fell on the celestial weapon in Wang Chen's hand that had instantly killed Zheng Peng, a half-step golden immortal. He almost couldn't help but rush over to kill Wang Chen and snatch the king's celestial weapon. I didn't expect him to be a crafting master. If we can befriend such a figure, it will definitely be a good thing for our Dao Comprehension Tower, Feng Jianyang said. That's right. This guy can actually refine a king's celestial weapon. Ren Tianqing thought that this also meant that Wang Qin could refine a second or even a third king's celestial weapon. The value of a crafting master was definitely much greater than a king's celestial weapon. Most importantly, this guy was already a heaven immortal at such a young age. He had a boundless future ahead of him. Such a genius must not be offended. Moreover, if this guy was a disciple of some superpower who came out to gain experience, he would offend the power behind this guy if he killed him. At that time, even the Dao Comprehension Tower might not be able to protect him. Thinking of this, the golden immortal elder, Ren Tianqing, couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Damn it, why haven't those guys from the Lunar Prayer Tower made a move yet? Xia Wei, who was in the pavilion far away, was getting impatient. When he saw Wang Chen's majestic appearance in the distant sky, he was so angry that he couldn't wait to trample on Wang Chen. Your Royal Highness, what's the hurry? The people from the Lunar Prayer Tower should be nearby. They're waiting for a chance to kill us in one strike. A young man in black stood beside Xia Wei. This young man in black seemed to be one with the darkness around him. If one didn't see him with their naked eyes, no one would be able to sense his existence. This person was like an elf in the dark, strange, sinister, and his eyes were filled with a gloomy and cold light. Humph, Tainzi, if you're willing to help, I'll give you 2 kings' celestial weapons. Xia Wei glanced at the young man in black beside him and said. When the young man in black heard Xia Wei's words, a trace of disdain appeared on his face. Not interested. Hee, if Yang Zhan or Imperial Prince Kinggu were here, you would be interested. Xia Wei said coldly, but he didn't take it seriously. This guy from the Taiyin celestial sect was really despicable. He was so arrogant just because he had a high cultivation. If they were here, of course I'd be interested in sparring with them, Tai Yinzi said calmly. Tai Yinzi said calmly. His eyes were fixed on Wang Qin in the distant sky. Roar! At this moment, an earth-shattering roar came from the direction of the city Lord's mansion. In the next moment, a beam of celestial light shot up from the city Lord's mansion, connecting heaven and earth. In the next moment, the essence of heaven and earth within a radius of 1,000 miles frantically gathered towards the city Lord's mansion, forming a huge whirlpool of spiritual chi above the city Lord's mansion. Celestial light pierces the sky. A golden immortal has appeared. Someone has cultivated the golden immortal Dao fruit again? Rin Tianqing, the golden immortal elder of the Dao Enlightenment Tower, couldn't help but be moved when he saw this scene. All the cultivators in the Sky Market City were alarmed. When these cultivators saw the strange scene above the city Lord's mansion, they were all extremely shocked. A powerful celestial aura spread out from the city Lord's mansion. All the cultivators in the city were terrified, and the weaker cultivators were already shivering. Golden Immortal? Wang Qin looked at the celestial light. He could feel the endless vitality in the celestial light, which was very similar to the scene when he successfully transcended the immortal tribulation. "Little guy, I think we'd better run away." Black poked half of his head out from Wang Chen's chest and transmitted his voice to Wang Qin. With Wang Chen's current cultivation, he was no match for a golden immortal. No one knew if the celestial weapon in Wang Chen's hand could defeat a golden immortal. Run away? How can we do that? We should say goodbye to Lin Yu. Wang Chen suddenly smiled strangely and rushed towards the city, Lord's mansion. Chapter 3702. Rumble. A massive vortex of spiritual energy appeared in the sky above Cloud Heaven City, and an extremely terrifying aura spread out. The countless mortals and cultivators within the city were terrified to the extreme. All of them fell to the ground, trembling. So, at this moment, in front of the main hall of the Cloud Sky City, Lord Mansion, the city Lord's body was glowing with golden light. Countless immortal runes appeared on his body. Faint sounds of the grand Tao could be heard coming from his body. His immortal body was transforming like a bottomless black hole, devouring spiritual energy from all directions. Golden immortal? Yin, she had already retreated. She stared at her father in shock. Her father, who was seriously injured and on the verge of death just a moment ago. Not only was he brimming with energy, his cultivation had also broken through from the immortal realm to the golden immortal realm. That was a golden immortal. That was definitely a legendary existence within the training grounds. In the Cloud Sky mountain range, there had not been a golden immortal for at least 10,000 years. A golden immortal represented invincibility in the trial world. At this moment, Yun Ao, who was outside the city Lord Mansion, stared at his father in a daze. He knew very well what a golden immortal meant to him. His father's cultivation had already broken through to the golden immortal realm. He was invincible in the trial world. The higher his father's cultivation, the more stable his position would be. Yun Ao was already a demigod. One more step and he would be an immortal god. The primordial chaos chi that Gu Fei shot into the city, Lord's body, could actually allow an immortal god's cultivation to break through to the golden immortal realm. This shocked everyone. Roar. The city lord roared towards the sky. His voice was like a dragon's roar, soaring into the sky and reverberating above the 9 heavens. The next moment he turned into a sword light and rushed out of Cloud Sky City. The powerful pressure of a golden immortal shocked all directions. Both humans and beasts had to lower their heads. Even the white wolf sovereign and the demonic ape sovereign were dumbfounded. The city lord took a deep breath, and the endless spiritual energy that gathered from all directions above Cloud Sky City was sucked into his body. Kill! The Cloud Sky City lord roared. He waved his right hand, and a golden sword light flashed in the air. The white wolf sovereign's head flew into the air. At the next moment, the white wolf beast sovereign's head and headless corpse were blown away by the wind and turned into dust that dissipated into the air. The Cloud Sky City lord killed the powerful white wolf beast sovereign with just one strike. This shocked everyone in the Cloud Sky City. Gold immortal? That's impossible. The cultivators of the older generation in Cloudy Heaven City were extremely excited. They had actually witnessed the birth of a golden immortal in their lifetime. The beast sovereign in the Cloud Sky mountain range was like a chicken in front of a golden immortal. Father actually became a golden immortal! Outside the main hall of the city lord's residence, Yun, she looked up at the sky and muttered to herself, "His aptitude is too low." At this moment, a voice came from the main hall. What? Yun, she couldn't help but stare blankly when she heard this. She still couldn't quite react. My aptitude is too low? Who has the worst aptitude? Who else? Isn't it your old man? Gu Fei's calm voice came from the hall. What did you say? Yun, she was hopping mad. Her father was the first golden immortal to be born in the Cloud Sky mountain range in the past 10,000 years. How dare this guy say that her father's aptitude was poor, and it was too low? She was going crazy. Isn't that so? A single strand of primordial chaos is only enough to become a golden immortal. If it's not because of poor aptitude, then what is it? Gu Fei's voice was still calm. Yun, she was speechless. At this moment, she suddenly realized that the gap between her and Gu Fei was truly too great. Thinking of this, she couldn't help feeling a little dejected. "What is primordial chaos qi?" asked Yun Shi. She was very curious. It was definitely a miracle that a strand of primordial chaos qi could raise an immortal's cultivation to the golden immortal realm. "It's the ancestor qi of heaven and earth," said Gu Fei. He didn't plan to hide it. Ancestor qi of heaven and earth? When Yun Shi heard this, she was shocked again. Could it be that this was the spiritual essence that her father had mentioned at the beginning of the world? Those who were able to cultivate to the immortal God stage had a certain level of understanding and comprehension of the heaven and earth. Perhaps the Cloud Sky City Lord didn't know about the primordial chaos energy, but he knew that the energy essence from the beginning of the heaven and earth was the most primordial energy in the world. "You wouldn't know even if I told you," said Gu Fei. "Humph. How do you know that I don't know?" "Yun," she said, unhappily. "All right. I won't talk nonsense with you anymore. If there's nothing else, don't disturb me." Gu Fei said no more. Yun, she glanced at the tightly shut door of the hall with a sad expression. She then looked up at the sky. His father slashed out with his sword again, directly slicing the demonic ape-beast sovereign into two. Under the impact of the powerful sword qi, the demonic ape-beast sovereign's physical body also turned into dust and dissipated in the void, directly destroyed in both body and spirit. This was the terror of a golden immortal. An immortal beast sovereign was no match for them. They didn't even have the strength to fight back. "This guy is mine." Seeing that City Lord Yuntian was about to attack the rock beast sovereign, Yang Zhan quickly shouted at him. Although he was talking, his hands did not stop. Boom! He sent the rock beast sovereign flying with a punch. Then he took a step forward and appeared in the sky above the rock beast sovereign in an instant. Without hesitation, Yang Zhan stomped down on the rock beast sovereign. Boom! To think that the rock lord, which was even larger than a mountain, would be stomped down from the skies by a mere human. This was something that had everyone in the world absolutely flabbergasted. At this level of cultivation, size no longer had any advantage. Even if the rock beast sovereign was huge, Yang Zhan could still easily kill it if he was strong enough. Of course, the premise was that Yang Zhan was strong enough to suppress everything. Hearing Yang Zhan's words, City Lord Yuntian stopped attacking. To him, after breaking through to the golden immortal realm, he was no longer afraid of anyone. City Lord Yuntian was confident that he could easily kill the rock beast sovereign. The rock beast sovereign fell from the sky and smashed a huge pit on the ground. Instantly, the earth shook and the mountains shook. Dust rose high into the sky and covered the entire area. Seeing this, even City Lord Yuntian, who had become a golden immortal, was dumbfounded. Who exactly was that Gu Fei? How could he possess such a method that allowed a little cultivator at the peak of the Hotian realm to instantly possess such a powerful and unbelievable combat strength? City Lord Yuntian was very afraid of Gu Fei. At the same time, he was also very curious about where Gu Fei came from. One should know that 10 years ago, there wasn't such a powerful existence among the outsiders. Chapter 3703. The so-called Yingtian sect's training ground was actually an abandoned, inferior world. The experts of the primogenitor realm divided the worlds into inferior, intermediate, superior, and extreme. In the eyes of the great characters of the primogenitor realm, inferior worlds were nothing. Because the laws of the inferior worlds were incomplete, the spiritual energy in the entire world was very thin. there were only a few places where spiritual energy gathered. Countless cultivators in the inferior worlds couldn't become immortals, even if they cultivated for a lifetime, let alone golden immortals. Only those forces that occupied spiritual lands could give birth to immortal god-level experts. However, there were very few spiritual lands in low-class worlds. There were too many wolves and not enough meat. The competition between the major powers in the inferior worlds was even more intense. The Cloud Sky City was a place where spiritual energy gathered. Otherwise, the Cloud Sky City Lord wouldn't have been able to become an immortal. The fact that the Cloud Sky City Lord occupied a spirit cave in the Cloud Sky City made countless people envious. The reason why the wild beasts in the Cloud Sky mountain range would have a beast tide every 10 years was largely because of the spirit cave in the Cloud Sky City. At this time, Yang Zhan, this little cultivator, had obtained the support of Gu Fei's power. His entire body seemed to have turned into a god of war, beating the rock until it couldn't fight back at all. All the cultivators who saw this scene were shocked. Boom! Bang! The rock was continuously sent flying by Yang Zhan. Its blood dripped from the sky, staining the soil on the ground red. It wasn't that the rock wasn't strong, but that Yang Zhan was too strong. Although Yang Zhan was only a peak Hotian cultivator, the battle power he displayed was extremely powerful. Roar! The great rock beast sovereign kept roaring in anger. Endless power of fire erupted from its body, burning the space around it to the point of annihilation. The Cloud Sky City Lord had experienced this kind of divine fire before. It was extremely tyrannical and could burn immortals to death. However, Yang Zhan was able to ignore this terrifying divine fire. A faint layer of primordial chaos energy surrounded Yang Zhan's body. A faint and illusory figure could be faintly seen on his body. With the primordial chaos energy protecting him, no matter how strong the divine fire was, it was impossible for it to harm Yang Zhan. The divine fire that erupted from the great rock beast sovereign was refined and swallowed by the primordial chaos energy. Primordial chaos chi was the ancestral chi of heaven and earth. It could refine all essence chi in the world, be it immortal chi, divine chi, devil chi, or even death chi. Simply put, the primordial chaos chi could devour all tangible and intangible essence energy to strengthen itself. In other words, the more Yang Zhan fought, the stronger he became, while the great rock beast sovereign grew weaker. By then, even the average cultivators could tell that the great rock beast sovereign would lose. City Lord Yun Tian had just broken through to the golden immortal realm. Initially, he wanted to settle the score with the great rock beast Venerable. But now, it seemed like there was no need for him to do anything. Roar! At this time, the rock Venerable directly spat out a ball of divine fire at Yang Zhan. In the next moment, the ball of divine fire instantly exploded, and the terrifying destructive divine fire instantly enveloped the entire sky. Yang Zhan was instantly engulfed by the divine flames. The void that was enveloped by the divine flames was distorted and annihilated. The destructive divine flames seemed to be able to incinerate everything in the world, including the void. However, a figure directly walked out of the divine flames that filled the sky and walked towards the great rock beast sovereign step by step. Endless divine flames raged around his body, but they couldn't do anything to him. This extremely terrifying destructive divine flames were blocked by a faint layer of primordial chaos chi that emerged from Yang Zhan's body. The destructive divine flames around Yang Zhan continuously gathered towards him and were devoured by the primordial chaos chi that emerged from his body. The primordial chaos chi that emerged from his body gradually condensed. At this time, the great rock beast sovereign was dumbfounded. "All right, I don't want to play with you anymore. I'll send you on your way." Yang Zhan's expression turned solemn. He opened his mouth and inhaled, completely devouring the destructive divine flames that filled the sky. The great rock beast sovereign was shocked and turned to flee. At this moment, Yangzhan opened his mouth and spat out a ray of fire. It turned into a battle spear and instantly pierced the great rock beast sovereign's body. After the battle spear formed by the power of fire pierced the great rock beast sovereign's body, it continued to fly forward for tens of feet before disappearing into the void. Seeing the scene, the eyeballs of all the cultivators in the Sky Market City almost fell to the ground. Even the golden immortal lord of the Cloud Sky City was dumbfounded. Yangzhan's combat strength was too strong. It was definitely at a heaven-defying level. One should know that the great rock beast sovereign was no weakling. What truly shocked the Cloud Sky City lord was not Yangzhan but Gu Fei. Gu Fei's methods were too unbelievable. Why would such a person come to the Cloud Sky City? What beast tied? What beast venerable? In front of him, they were just like ants. The Cloud Sky City lord was very confused. How could he possibly guess Gu Fei's thoughts? In fact, even Gu Fei himself did not know what he was going to do. At his level, he could no longer improve his cultivation by simply meditating. However, entering or leaving the world was a form of cultivation. It was definitely not an easy task to take the final step and become an extreme supremacy. Since ancient times, there were many people who were more outstanding than Gu Fei, but there were very few who could become an extreme Tao Supreme. Gu Fei's cultivation had long reached a bottleneck. Now he could only follow his heart and not forget his original intention. Meanwhile, in the sky, although the great rock beast sovereign's body had been pierced by the battle spear formed by the power of fire, it did not die. The great rock beast sovereign let out a furious roar and turned into a ray of fire that soared into the sky in an attempt to escape. Yangzhan sneered. He stretched out his hand, and a giant primal chaos hand directly grabbed the flame, directly grabbing it in his hand. Don't. The great rock beast sovereign was scared out of its wits and hurriedly begged for mercy. However, Yangzhan's chaotic primordial hand immediately destroyed the ray of fire that the great rock beast sovereign had turned into. The great rock beast sovereign's divine body immediately exploded into a bloody mist. A beast sovereign had fallen, just like that. The great rock beast sovereign was crushed by Yangzhan's chaotic primordial hand without any suspense. The king of beasts in the Cloud Sky mountain range was no match for Yangzhan. Yangzhan killed the great rock beast sovereign as easily as taking something out of his pocket. Just as Yangzhan killed the great rock beast sovereign, his body suddenly trembled and a blurry figure directly rushed out from his body. The figure directly rushed down from the sky and disappeared from the city, Lord's mansion. Yangzhan was instantly beaten back to his original form. Chapter 3704. With the fall of the great rock beast sovereign, the entire beast stampede came to an end. Countless savage beasts fled back into the depths of the mountains, and it was likely that they would not come out for a very long time. Previously, with the 3 beast sovereigns leading the beast clans, the countless savage beasts in the Cloud Heavenly Mountain Range would have a beast tide every 10 years. But now, without the beast sovereigns leading the beast clans, the Cloud Heavenly Mountain Range would not have another beast tide in the next 100 years. With the end of the beast tide, the mortals and cultivators in Yuntian City gradually came out of their hiding places. The streets were littered with the corpses of the rock beasts and wyvern beasts. Only these ferocious birds and beasts that could fly could attack Cloud Heaven City. The walls of the Cloudy Heaven City were over 100 feet tall. Even if the Beast Highness were to personally attack, it would be impossible for him to break them in a short period of time. The cultivators were not interested in the corpses of the ordinary wild beasts in the city. However, the mortals were different. They began clearing the corpses of the wild beasts in the city. All the mortals seemed to have been injected with chicken blood as they frantically fought over the corpses. The wyvern's corpse was quickly emptied, and even the great rock's corpse was being fought over by the mortals. However, the scales on the body of the rock were too difficult to break, and only cultivators could deal with them. However, the Cloud Heaven City dispatched generals with spirit artifacts to help the mortals deal with the Great Pung Beast. The Great Pung Beast's leather armor could be made into all kinds of battle clothes, and this kind of battle clothes had astonishing defensive power. The rock's skin was stripped off by the general, and the meat left behind by the general was taken advantage of by the mortals in the city. For the mortals in Cloud Sky City, the lean meat of the Great Pung Beast was definitely a great supplement. The meat of this kind of savage beast contained some spiritual essence. For ordinary people, eating the rock beast's meat would naturally have the effect of strengthening their bodies, especially children and young people. At this time, the Cloud Heaven City was filled with people. After the savage beasts surrounding the city retreated, the tightly shut city gates of the Cloud Heaven City slowly opened. Each of the city gates was blocked by a small mountain of beast corpses. All kinds of beast corpses had completely blocked the city gates, and the smell of blood filled the air. The ground was covered in sticky, half-congealed blood. It was slippery and sticky when one walked on it, making it easy for one to slip. Before the guards of Cloud Heaven City could open the city gates, the city was already crowded with countless mortals and even some low-level cultivators. As soon as the city gate opened, everyone rushed forward like crazy, fighting over the beast corpses outside the city gate. Even the city guards of Cloud Heaven City joined in the scramble. For a moment, the 4 city gates were in a mess. Those who managed to snatch the corpses left happily, while those who didn't continued to snatch the corpses. Although the beast corpses blocking the city gates were piled up like a mountain, there was strength in numbers. In less than half an hour, the beast corpses blocking the 4 city gates were all snatched up. Only the giant corpses of the beasts were left untouched because they were untouchable. For example, the corpse of the barbaric elephant beast was like a small hill. It was impossible for a mortal to move it. Only those Peak Hotian or Xiantian realm cultivators had the ability to handle the corpse of this huge beast. Gu Fei naturally wouldn't snatch the corpses of these beasts. Even the corpses of the beast venerables were like the corpses of ants in his eyes. Why would a mighty dragon pay attention to an ant? Moreover, it was a dead ant. However, Yang Zhan and the armored barbaric beast king couldn't sit still. Yang Zhan had already returned to the city, Lord's mansion, but he rushed out again. He was riding on the armored barbaric ox king, which was incomparably flashy. He swaggered out, and no one dared to stop him. The armored barbaric ox king was an existence that could easily tear apart a Xiantian realm cultivator. Most importantly, no one dared to stop Gu Fei's people. At this time, the Cloud Sky City Lord brought Yun Ao and Yun Shi to the main hall of the city, Lord's mansion. They wanted to see Gu Fei, but Gu Fei didn't pay any attention to them. The dignified Cloud Sky City Lord could only stand outside the main hall and obediently wait. He didn't dare to show any dissatisfaction. The Cloud Sky City Lord was a golden immortal awe. All the big shots in the city were paying attention to the Cloud Sky City Lord and the others inside the city, Lord's mansion. Unexpectedly, even the Cloud Sky City Lord and the others were given the cold shoulder. Although Gu Fei had only subdued the armored barbaric ox king and hadn't made a move since, no one dared to look down on him. Those beast king corpses are all mine. Whoever dares to fight with me, I'll fight with them. Yang Zhan, who was riding the armored barbaric ox king, directly rushed out of the Cloud Sky City and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Who's so arrogant? Do you think you're the city, Lord of the Cloud Sky City?" A dark-skinned man said with disdain. He was dealing with a beast king's corpse. He had just dug out the condensed beast king crystal core from the beast king's body. The crystal core was still stained with blood. Beast kings were stronger than Xiantian realm cultivators. Such existences had already condensed beast crystals in their bodies. That was the source of the beast king's power and the essence of the beast king. Beast crystals were rare treasures for the cultivators in the trial grounds. A beast crystal could allow a peak Hotian realm cultivator to cultivate for a period of time. Even if a Sciention realm cultivator refined a beast crystal, their cultivation would increase by a certain amount. I'm arrogant, what's wrong? A voice rang out directly behind the dark-skinned man. The dark-skinned man only felt 2 waves of hot air assaulting his back. Outrageous! Are you courting death? The dark-skinned man was enraged and turned around abruptly. In the next moment, the dark-skinned man was dumbfounded. He almost bumped into a huge ox head. The ox head's nose was spewing out white gas. The hot air was coming from the ox's nose. I'm courting death. What do you want? A young man on the ox's back stared coldly at the dark-skinned man. At this moment, the surrounding people looked at the dark-skinned man as if they were looking at an idiot. This guy is awesome. He actually dared to go against this awesome man. Who's the one courting death? This guy is too daring. Many people wanted to see how the dark-skinned man would be unlucky. You. At this moment, the dark-skinned man was dumbfounded. He did not move, afraid that if he moved, the Beast King in front of him would tear him to pieces. I had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai, an offended fellow Taoist. I hope fellow Taoist won't take offense. This beast crystal will be given to fellow Taoist as a form of filial piety. The dark-skinned man quickly said as beads of sweat continuously appeared on his forehead. Yang Zhan saw the dark-skinned man lower his head. He was very proud and said, "What? You want me to let you go just because you want a beast crystal? Then what do you want?" The dark-skinned man's intestines turned green with regret. He shouldn't have spoken without seeing clearly. This time he had really kicked an iron plate. Leave the beast crystal and scram. Yang Zhan hated these guys who bullied the weak and feared the strong. Yes. I'll scram right away. The dark-skinned man hurriedly handed over the beast crystal with both hands. Then he directly lay down on the ground and rolled away. Chapter 3705. Near the Cloud Sky mountain range, the beast tide had already retreated. Countless wild beasts in the Cloud Sky mountain range left behind a large number of corpses before fleeing into the mountain range. Outside the Cloud Sky City, there were beast corpses everywhere. There were even some beast king corpses among them. Among the countless wild beasts in the Cloud Sky mountain range, the ones that could become beast kings were extremely powerful and had condensed beast cores in their bodies. These beast king corpses became the targets of competition between the cultivators in the Cloud Sky City and the cultivators from outside. Yang Zhan's shout offended all the cultivators outside the North Gate. However, no one dared to say anything. He rode on the armored barbaric bull king and charged towards the corpse of a beast king. This was a black tiger. To be precise, it was a black tiger king. This black tiger king was not small. It was lying on the ground with a broken arrow stuck in its forehead. It seemed like the arrow was the fatal wound of this black tiger king. Yang Zhan did not care so much. He rushed forward to dig out the beast crystal, but the armored barbaric bull king stomped on the black tiger king's head and crushed it. The armored barbaric bull king directly swallowed the beast crystal in the black tiger king's head. This time, Yang Zhan was dumbfounded. After eating the black tiger king's beast crystal, the aura emitted by the armored barbaric bull king gradually became stronger. The ferocious aura caused the surrounding cultivators to feel their hearts palpitate. They hurriedly hid far away. What a joke! This was a beast king, a living beast king. It was not like the dead beast kings outside the city. My beast crystal. Yang Zhan could not do anything. He did not dare to fight with the armored barbaric bull king for its beast crystal. Soon, Yang Zhan and the armored barbaric bull king dealt with 8 beast kings. Originally, he should have obtained 8 beast crystals. However, because of the armored barbaric bull king's interference, he only obtained 3. The other 5 beast crystals were eaten by the armored barbaric bull king. This almost drove Yang Zhan crazy. Those were 5 beast crystals. 5 beast crystals could allow him to break through his bottleneck and become a Sciention expert. Now he only obtained 3 beast crystals. Brother Ox, you go to the east gate. I'll go to the south gate. Yang Zhan didn't wait for the armored barbaric Ox King to respond. He leaped off the ox's back and rushed toward the south gate. He and the armored barbaric Ox King had already dealt with the Beast King's corpse at the north gate. The armored barbaric Ox King could only charge towards the east gate. Aside from the north gate, there were still many Beast King corpses lying outside the other 3 gates. No one had bothered to deal with them. Naturally, by then the cultivators in Cloud Sky City had already started moving. Quite a number of them managed to obtain the beast crystals. Everyone get lost. Arriving at the south gate, Yang Zhan roared again. Some of the cultivators who were handling the corpses of the Beast Kings were enraged and were about to scold Yang Zhan. But when they saw Yang Zhan's face, they were dumbfounded. No one dared to speak. Previously, Yang Zhan had displayed his prowess in the sky above Cloud Heaven City and killed the strongest of the 3 beast sovereigns, the Rock Beast Sovereign. The invincible scene was witnessed by the cultivators in the city. Now, Yang Zhan was famous in Cloud Sky City. He was even more awesome than the city, Lord of Cloud Sky City. The cultivators who were digging for beast crystals outside the south gate all stopped and immediately turned to leave. These cultivators did not dare to show any dissatisfaction. At least these guys are tactful. Yang Zhan couldn't help but feel proud as he watched the cultivators leave. There were 7 beast kings outside the south gate. 2 of them had their beast crystals dug out, but the remaining 5 still had their beast crystals. Yang Zhan was very happy and quickly started digging for the beast crystals. Very quickly, he obtained 5 beast crystals. In addition to the 3 from before, he now had 8 beast crystals. Yang Zhan directly rushed towards the west gate. At this time, there was a sea of people outside the west gate. They were all moving the beast corpses. There were a few places outside the west gate that mortals did not dare to approach. Moo. At this time, the armored barbaric Ox King also arrived outside the west gate. When Yang Zhan saw this, he immediately pounced towards the Beast King corpse closest to him. While Yang Zhan and the armored barbaric Ox King were fighting over the beast crystals, the eyes of the cultivators in the city all fell on the city lord's mansion. The city lord and the others have been standing there for more than an hour. That guy called Gu Fei still hasn't come out. Outside the city lord's mansion, the battle generals were whispering, "That guy called Gu Fei, what kind of background does he have? How would I know? That guy is really mysterious." The cultivators gathered outside the city lord's mansion were also whispering. No one was optimistic about the city lord's chances. However, if the Yun family wanted to continue being the ruler of Cloud Sky City, they would need the approval of someone in the city lord's mansion. Time continued to pass. The city lord of Cloud Sky City and the others had waited for 3 days. These 3 days were the most difficult for them to endure. At this time, Gu Fei was still resting on the throne in the main hall. On the east wall of the city lord's mansion stood a cultivator with white teeth and red lips. This person was the little overlord of the Feng clan, Feng Yu. Behind Feng Yu stood 2 young men dressed in black. These 2 young men dressed in black carefully stood behind Feng Yu. They seemed a little nervous because Feng Yu was the number 1 person among the younger generation of the Feng clan. At this time, a group of people arrived in front of Cloud Sky City. They were extremely shocked when they saw the rivers of blood and the countless beast corpses on the ground. There were 22 people in this group. The leader was a bald young man who was blind in one eye. This young man's body actually emitted an aura that only beasts could emit. At this time, outside the west gate, Yang Zhan, who had just dug out a beast crystal from the Beast King's body, suddenly saw a group of people walking towards Cloud Sky City. However, he actually saw a familiar figure in this group. Lei Dong. He saw Lei Dong, a disciple of the Lei clan with an extremely powerful cultivation. Yang Zhan. At this moment, Lei Dong also saw Yang Zhan from within the group. Lei Dong's gaze suddenly fell on the beast crystal in Yang Zhan's hand. Lingering spiritual energy, this is good stuff. Lei Dong muttered to himself. Ever since he entered the trial grounds, he had been miserable. If he hadn't met this group of people, he would have died a long time ago. Yang Zhan, hurry up and come over here. Hand over the beast crystal in your hand. Lei Dong shouted at Yang Zhan. When Lei Dong's voice rang out, the people outside the west gate immediately quieted down. Even the countless mortals who were fighting over the beast corpses stopped talking. They all looked at Lei Dong in shock. This kid is awesome. Chapter 3706. Ing Tian Sec's Primogenita Mountain Ranges. Primogenita Mountain Ranges' 9 Great Trials were actually not created by a supreme existence to allowing Tian Sec's Primogenita Mountain Ranges' 9 Great Trials. The 9 stone doors were actually an inferior world discovered by Ing Tian sect that had been abandoned by the Primogenitor realm for countless years. Due to the fact that the laws of heaven and earth were very incomplete, the great figures of the Primogenitor realm simply didn't care about such a lowly world. A power like Ing Tian sect could only be considered a second-rate power in the Primogenitor realm. Only a power with an extreme supremacy could become one of the strongest powers in the Primogenitor realm. A power with a quasi-supremacy like Ing Tian sect could only be considered a second-rate power. It wasn't even a first-rate power, let alone one of the strongest super first-rate powers. Even the Ing Tianzong only treated this relic as a training ground for their disciples. This trial was actually very simple. Within 10 days, if one could come out of the trial in perfect condition, it would be considered as completing the trial. Of course, this was only the first trial of Ing Tian sec's entry trial. After this trial, the young cultivators who came out of the trial would have the right to enter Ing Tian sect. However, this was only the right to enter Ing Tian sect. After that, these young cultivators would have to undergo a large competition. At this time, those who won the competition would have the opportunity to become the disciples of the Ing Tian sect's elders. Those who lost in the competition could only become ordinary disciples of Ing Tian sect or even servants. Becoming an elder's disciple would allow one to reach the heavens in a single step. This was the goal of all young disciples who wanted to enter Ing Tian sect. However, to be chosen by the elders of the Ing Tian sect, one would have to display extraordinary cultivation and talent. Although Lei Dong was the most outstanding figure of the Lei clan's younger generation, he was still quite inferior to the Feng clan's little overlord, Feng Yu. One had to know that Feng Yu was an expert that surpassed the Xiantian realm. In Gufei's opinion, Feng Yu was an existence at the void-controlling realm, only one step away from becoming a demigod. Above that was the paramount saint realm. In fact, cultivators could already break through to the immortal god realm when they were in the demigod realm. This was because the paramount saint realm was the realm between the demigod realm and the immortal god realm. Lei Dong wanted to raise his cultivation as soon as possible, and it would be best if he could break through to the void-controlling realm in the training grounds. In this way, he might be chosen by one of the elders of the Ing Tian sect. Lei Dong's big brother, Lei Zhen, was chosen by an elder of Ing Tian courtyard and became an elder's disciple. In a short 10 years, he successfully cultivated to become an immortal. The beast crystals of the beast kings in the Cloud Sky mountain range were treasures that could increase one's cultivation. Before Lei Dong participated in the trial, he had already learned about this from his big brother. Therefore, when he saw Yang Zhan collecting the beast crystals, he immediately jumped out and yelled at Yang Zhan arrogantly, wanting him to obediently hand over the beast crystals. When Lei Dong shouted at Yang Zhan, everyone outside the west gate was shocked. This guy was too arrogant. He actually dared to shout at Gufei's men, "Lei Dong!" When Yang Zhan saw this guy, his pupils shrank. This guy was still as arrogant as ever. "What, are you deaf? Why aren't you kneeling down and handing over the beast crystals? Lei Dong was like a high and mighty ruler looking down on Yangzhan. He was a Khanate cultivator, while Yangzhan was only at the peak of the acquired realm. There was nothing wrong with the strong looking down on the weak. However, at this moment, everyone outside the west gate looked at Lei Dong as if he was an idiot. Are you sure you want me to kneel down and hand over the beast crystals to you? Yangzhan looked at Lei Dong with a smile that wasn't a smile. What? You're just a little Khanate cultivator. Do you want to ignore my words? Lei Dong's expression instantly turned cold. At this moment, all the cultivators outside the west gate were looking at Lei Dong. Lei Dong also noticed that the people around him were looking at him strangely, but he didn't care. Moo! At this moment, a huge beast suddenly stood up from afar. A pair of big red eyes stared fiercely at Lei Dong, and a strong killing intent erupted from the body of this beast king. The cultivators around the west gate hurriedly retreated in fear. Even the mortals who were handling the beast corpses were terrified and rushed towards the city gate. At this moment, the leader of Lei Dong's group, the bald youth who was blind in one eye, retreated without making a sound. Iron-armored Bull King. Someone exclaimed, You want my beast crystals? Let's see if you have the ability. Yangzhan suddenly said with a smile. Lei Dong stared in shock at the armored Bull King that was spewing out white gas from its nostrils. How could there be a living beast king here? He didn't expect that there would be another beast king at the west gate. He also didn't expect that this beast king had already been subdued. Little Bull, kill him. Yangzhan couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with Lei Dong. He pointed at the beast king in the distance and said, What? When Lei Dong heard Yangzhan's words, he was shocked. How was this possible? How could this iron-armored Bull King listen to Yangzhan's orders? One had to know that this iron-armored Bull King was a beast king. It was much stronger than a Xiantian expert. How could it listen to a Hotian realm cultivator? Yangzhan, are you trying to scare me? You think you can order the iron-armored Bull King? What a joke. Lei Dong said disdainfully. He thought that this beast king would listen to Yangzhan's orders. However, he didn't know why this iron-armored Bull King had its eyes on him. This was very bad for him. Little Bull, what are you waiting for? Kill him, and I'll give you a beast crystal. Yangzhan said directly to the iron-armored Bull King in the distance. The iron-armored Bull King looked at the beast crystal in Yangzhan's hand. Then it lowered its body and exerted force with its 4 hooves. In the next moment, the beast king rushed towards Lei Dong like an arrow. This, when Lei Dong saw that the armored barbaric ox king was actually charging towards him, he was extremely shocked. How is this possible? Lei Dong was dumbfounded. He couldn't believe that Yangzhan could actually summon this beast king. At this time, all the cultivators outside the west gate of Cloud Sky City looked at Lei Dong with schadenfreude. This guy must be tired of living. He actually dared to provoke this fierce person. Even the bald young man in Lei Dong's group had a glint in his eyes. He stared at Yangzhan and wondered where this guy came from. Chapter 3707. Outside the west gate of the Cloudy Sky City, Lei Dong was dumbfounded. He had never expected Yangzhan to be able to command the armored barbaric Bull King. What the hell is going on? Lei Dong was sweating profusely. The armored barbaric Bull King had arrived in front of him in an instant, and a gust of wind blew in his face. Swoosh! Lei Dong soared into the sky, and the armored barbaric Bull King charged right under his feet. If he had been half a step slower, he would have been crushed by the Beast King. After all, he was an inborn expert. In the world of mortals, he was considered an expert. However, in the face of an immortal, he was nothing more than an ant. Lei Dong cultivated the lightning Dao technique, and his movement technique was as fast as lightning. If it was an ordinary inborn expert, he would not be able to dodge the armored barbaric Bull King's charge. Moo! The armored barbaric Bull King bellowed, turned around and used its sharp horns to pick Lei Dong. As long as Lei Dong was hit, he would definitely be pierced by the horns. Lei Dong roared and struck out with his palm. The heavy palm force landed directly on the armored barbaric bull king's head. He felt as though his right palm had struck a piece of divine metal. Not only did he not hurt the beast king, but his right hand was also numbed from the impact. Damn it! Lei Dong made use of the recoil force to turn into a phantom and retreat. However, the armored barbaric bull king had been struck by Lei Dong's palm, and it had triggered the beast king's ferocity. The armored barbaric ox king roared in anger and chased after Lei Dong. Its speed was also extremely fast. Lei Dong, didn't you want my beast crystals? Why? You don't want them anymore? Yang Zhan shouted at Lei Dong, who was retreating pathetically. How could Lei Dong have the time to care about Yang Zhan now? Survival was the most important thing now. This was a battle without any suspense. Lei Dong, an inborn expert, was actually being chased by the armored barbaric bull king. All the cultivators were shocked. The armored barbaric bull king could actually ignore an inborn expert. It seemed like this beast king was not to be trifled with. As Lei Dong dodged the barbaric armored ox king's attacks, he brought out his weapon. It was a battle lance. Additionally, it was an immortal artifact that was even stronger than a spirit artifact. That's right, it was an immortal artifact. This was given to him by Lei Dong's big brother immortal before he entered the trial grounds. He thought that he wouldn't need to use this immortal artifact. But now, it would appear that he had no choice but to use this immortal artifact. Evil creature, die. Lei Dong took advantage of this opportunity and charged towards the armored barbaric ox king with his immortal spear. His spear stabbed towards the armored barbaric ox king's forehead. The armored barbaric ox king rolled to the side, dodging Lei Dong's spear. However, the armored barbaric ox king was still grazed by Lei Dong's spear. Its incomparably hard scales were directly pierced through, leaving a bloody mark on the beast king's body. What? Yang Zhan couldn't help being startled by this scene. Lei Dong was truly formidable. He had almost managed to kill the armored bull king with a counterattack. Moo. The armored barbaric ox king was infuriated. The beast king's 4 hooves pushed off the ground, and its huge body directly shot up from the ground, pouncing towards Lei Dong. Kill! Lei Dong bellowed. The immortal spear in his hand turned into a dazzling immortal light that pierced towards the armored barbaric ox king. Lei Dong smirked disdainfully. How could a mere mortal body contend against an immortal artifact? Even if Lei Dong couldn't fully activate the immortal spear's power, it wasn't something that an ordinary Xiantian expert could withstand. Even a void-controlling realm expert or a demigod realm expert wouldn't dare to take a blow from the immortal spear head-on. Swish! Right at that moment, the armored barbaric ox king suddenly opened its mouth and spat out a fireball. Within the fireball was a divine pearl. Boom! Lei Dong's immortal spear instantly collided with the divine pearl of raging flames spat out by the armored barbaric ox king, resulting in a loud explosion. In the next moment, Lei Dong felt a jolt in his right hand that was holding the immortal spear. An intense pain came from his hand, and the immortal spear in his hand flew out of his hand. He lowered his head and saw that his hand was covered in blood. How is this possible? Lei Dong couldn't believe it. One should know that the weapon in his hand was an immortal artifact. An immortal artifact was actually sent flying by the opponent's pearl? If they didn't see it with their own eyes, no one would believe it. However, at this moment, the fireball directly smashed into Lei Dong's body. In the next moment, Lei Dong's entire body was enveloped by divine flames. Lei Dong screamed, but very quickly, his screams completely disappeared. This was because he had already been burnt to ashes, leaving nothing behind. To be more precise, although Lei Dong was dead, he left behind an immortal artifact, an immortal spear. Everyone's eyes were incomparably bloodshot. At this moment, the armored barbaric ox king opened its mouth and sucked the fireball into its mouth. The immortal spear that was sent flying fell from the sky and stabbed into the ground. Immortal chi coiled around the body of the spear, and faint immortal runes could be faintly seen. Haha, this spear is actually an immortal artifact. Yang Zhan's figure flashed and instantly appeared next to the immortal spear. Just as he was about to reach for it, a hand suddenly reached out from the side and grabbed the immortal spear. What? Yang Zhan quickly turned around and saw that the person who grabbed the immortal spear was actually a bald young cultivator who was blind in one eye. I didn't expect that guy to have an immortal artifact on him. If I had known earlier, I would have killed him a long time ago. The one-eyed bald young man fiercely stared at the immortal spear in his hand, his single eye flashing with radiance. Yang Zhan was both shocked and furious. He never thought that someone would dare to snatch something from him. The fat meat was already in his mouth, but it was still going to be eaten. It was impossible for Yang Zhan not to be angry. With an immortal artifact in hand, the world is mine, ha-ha! The one-eyed bald young man laughed loudly, his voice echoing far and wide, causing all the cultivators in the city to be incomparably shocked. Hey, who are you? Who the hell do you think you are? You actually dare to come here and act like this? Yang Zhan directly shouted at the one-eyed bald young man. He felt a sense of disgust when he looked at this fellow. This bald young man was clearly not a good person. Who am I? You aren't qualified to know, the one-eyed bald young man arrogantly said. Hearing this, Yang Zhan immediately burst into laughter. This fellow actually dared to say that he wasn't qualified to know his name? Was he not afraid that the wind would cut his tongue? Moo! At this time a low voice rang out. Everyone turned towards the direction of the voice and saw that the armored barbaric ox king was actually staring at the one-eyed bald young man. For the fastest updated website for this book, please visit Yunlai Pavilion. Chapter 3708. After Gu Fei subdued the armored barbaric ox king, he casually tossed a fire element divine pearl to the armored barbaric ox king. To Gu Fei, this fire element divine pearl was just an artifact. He could casually grab a handful of these immortal artifacts. However, to the armored barbaric ox king, this divine pearl was a supreme treasure among supreme treasures. It was a legendary immortal artifact. With this divine pearl, this beast king was qualified to become a beast sovereign. If it wasn't for the protection of this divine pearl, the armored barbaric ox king would have been killed by Lei Dong. Unfortunately, Lei Dong was the one who died this time. He originally thought that he could sweep through everything with an immortal artifact, but in the end he still ended up dead. At this moment, the armored barbaric ox king stared at the bald youth in black. Little ox, he said that I'm not qualified to know his name. What do you think? Yang Zhan crossed his arms and looked at the bald youth with a faint smile. Moo! The armored barbaric ox king let out a low roar, and the space around it rippled like water. In such a low-grade world, cultivators above the Xiantian realm could shake the void, and immortals could easily destroy a region. The reason for this was naturally because the laws of the low-grade world were incomplete. The void of the low-grade world was the weakest. The armored barbaric ox king's red eyes stared at the bald youth holding the immortal spear. At this moment, the only eye on the bald youth emitted a dazzling light. No one could remain calm after being stared at by a beast king that could easily kill an Xiantian realm expert. Moreover, this beast king had just used a fairy weapon to destroy Lei Dong's body and soul. I'll give you a chance. Return the spear to me, and then scram. How about it? Yang Zhan looked at the bald youth playfully. The bald youth tightened his grip on the immortal spear. This was an immortal artifact. How could he hand it over? He knew better than anyone what an immortal artifact represented. Yang Zhan could clearly see the reluctance in the bald youth's single eye. He shook his head and said, I've already given you a chance. In that case, I have no other choice. This is your choice. You can't blame others. Swoosh! The one-eyed, bald youth soared into the sky and fled into the distance. In the end, he still couldn't bear to hand over the immortal artifact that he had already obtained, so he fled with all his might. Xianyu, go! Yang Zhan pointed at the fleeing fellow. Moo! The armored barbaric ox king immediately let out a low roar, and its 4 hooves stomped on the air as it charged up from the ground, chasing after the fleeing one-eyed bald youth. Everyone was indescribably shocked when they saw the scene. That person actually dared to snatch Yang Zhan's spoils of war? Wasn't this courting death? Without any suspense, the armored barbaric ox king caught up to the one-eyed bald young man. Seeing that he couldn't escape, he turned around and started fighting the armored barbarian ox king. The immortal spear in his hand stabbed at the armored barbarian ox king. The armored barbaric ox king dodged to the side with extreme speed. What? The one-eyed bald youth was shocked. The battle prowess displayed by this beast king seemed to be even stronger than when it had killed Lei Dong. This made him extremely shocked. Boom! In the next moment, the body of the armored barbaric ox king burst into flames. In an instant, the beast king had turned into a flaming ox. The armored barbaric ox king had advanced and transformed into an armored flaming ox emperor. A powerful aura erupted from the body of this beast king, and the divine fire that erupted from the body of this beast king caused the surrounding void to distort. Everyone was dumbfounded when they saw the scene in the sky. Even Yang Zhan's mouth was wide open in shock. The powerful pressure emitted from the body of the armored flaming ox emperor caused countless cultivators to almost be unable to breathe. Even the big shots in Cloudy Sky City were alarmed. That beast king actually advanced. Someone on top of Cloudy Sky City exclaimed, "How is this possible?" Some people found it hard to believe. Although the physique of beasts was stronger than that of humans, it was much more difficult for beasts to cultivate. In fact, there weren't many beast kings in the entire Cloudy Sky mountain range, and there were even fewer beast kings. But now the armored barbaric ox king had actually advanced at this moment. It had advanced from a beast king to a beast king. The one-eyed, bald young man immediately turned around and fled. With his current cultivation, it was impossible for him to contend against a beast king. The pressure that erupted from the armored barbaric ox king was enough to shake his soul. However, just as the one-eyed bald young man was about 100 feet away, the armored flaming ox emperor turned into a flame and instantly caught up to him. It directly collided with him. The speed of the armored flaming ox emperor was too fast. The one-eyed bald young man didn't even have time to scream before he was directly smashed by the armored flaming ox emperor. The divine fire burned the unlucky guy into ashes. A battle spear fell from the sky and directly stabbed into the ground. Everyone was stunned by the scene in the sky. It actually advanced. Yang Zhan looked at the armored flaming ox emperor bathed in divine fire in the sky and was extremely envious. When would he be able to break through the shackles of cultivation and become a Xiantian expert? In fact, Yang Zhan was very clear about his own situation. Even if he passed the trial and entered Ying Tianzong, he was afraid that he could only be a part-time disciple. A part-time disciple of Ying Tianzong was the disciple with the lowest seniority and the lowest status in Ying Tianzong. One had to know that although part-time disciples were called disciples, they were actually servants of Ying Tianzong. Any disciple with a bit of status could order a part-time disciple around. However, if his cultivation could break through to the Xiantian realm, then he would have the opportunity to become an elder's disciple. Even if he couldn't become an elder's disciple, he could still become an ordinary true disciple. Even becoming an ordinary true disciple would be better than being a part-time disciple. Thinking of this, Yang Zhan couldn't help but turn around and look in the direction of the city, Lord's mansion. This armored flaming ox emperor's luck was too good to have encountered Gu Fei. The things that Gu Fei casually gave out were all immortal items. Yang Zhan shook his head to clear his mind. Then he walked step by step towards the immortal spear that was stabbed into the ground. At this time, no one dared to make a move against Yang Zhan for the immortal spear. Yang Zhan directly arrived in front of the immortal spear and proudly swept his eyes around. Although he didn't say anything, no cultivator dared to look at him. Boom! At this time, a loud bang resounded and the ground shook. The armored, flaming ox emperor in the sky fell down from the sky like a fireball, landing in front of Yang Zhan. Oh my God, you scared me. Yang Zhan was startled and said. At this time, the armored flaming ox emperor stared at Yang Zhan. A powerful emperor aura erupted from its body, pressuring Yang Zhan to the point that he couldn't stand up straight. I know. I will give you the beast crystal. Yang Zhan directly took out a fist-sized beast crystal and threw it to the armored flaming ox emperor. The iron-armored fire bull emperor swallowed the beast crystal in one gulp. Soon, an even more powerful aura spread out from the iron-armored fire bull emperor. Everyone was shocked. Chapter 3709. The armored barbaric ox king that Gu Fei had subdued had actually advanced. This was something that even Gu Fei had never expected. He had only casually tossed a god bead to the beast king. He had not done anything at all. It could only be said that this beast king's luck was not bad. The fire element immortal energy contained in that fire element divine pearl was very strong. Although the armored barbaric bull king could not refine the divine pearl, it was still able to refine the divine pearl. Although the iron-armored bull king couldn't refine the bead, its body was constantly being nourished by the celestial fire energy from the fire element divine bead. As a result, the beast king successfully broke through its cultivation bottleneck and became a beast king, the king of the cloud sky mountain range. Yang Zhan was very envious of the iron-armored bull king. It had followed Gu Fei for so long, but it was still at the peak of the Hotian realm. When would it be able to break through to the Xiantian realm? At this moment, the iron-armored bull king swallowed the beast crystal that Yang Zhan threw to it and retreated to the side. Yang Zhan grabbed the immortal spear and pulled it out of the ground. The immortal spear was very heavy. Even with Yang Zhan's cultivation, it was difficult for him to pull it out. This kind of weapon could only be used by cultivators above the Xiantian realm. Even if a Hotian cultivator obtained an immortal artifact, they wouldn't be able to use it. Yang Zhan didn't care so much. Immortal artifact. He actually obtained an immortal artifact. He was very excited. It has to be said that this was something he didn't dare to imagine in the past. Outside the Primogenitum mountain range, the Yang clan was just a little guy. The most powerful clan leader was only a peak Xiantian realm cultivator. Peak Xiantian realm was just a joke to those big clans. Just like the Feng clan, Feng Yu was a powerful existence that surpassed the Xiantian realm. Yang Zhan put the immortal spear in his hand into the storage bag on his waist. Then he waved at the iron-armored bull king and walked toward the city gate. At this time, the spectators outside the west gate woke up from their shock and continued to deal with the beast corpses outside the city. With the end of the beast tide, more and more people came to the Cloud Sky City. Most of them were outsiders who entered the trial ground. Time passed by. In the blink of an eye, 6 days had passed since the beast tide. In a few days, all the outsiders who entered the trial grounds would have to leave. During these 6 days, City Master Yun Tian of the Yun family and his son and daughter had been waiting outside the main hall of the City Master's mansion. At their level of cultivation, it wouldn't be a problem even if they didn't eat or drink for more than 10 days. Are you guys sick? Why are you still waiting? Yang Zhan walked in from outside and glanced at Yin Shi and the others standing outside the main hall. He couldn't help but shake his head helplessly. Sincerity can split metal and stone. Yun Ao said indifferently, "Tisk." Yang Zhan had a look of disdain on his face. For an existence like Gu Fei, as long as he didn't care about Yin Shi and the others. Even if they stood outside the main hall until the seas dried up and the rocks crumbled, it would still be useless. At this time, the iron-armored Fire Bull Emperor was dozing off outside the main hall. It seemed to be sleeping, but it wasn't. There was a layer of fire on this Beast King's body. The iron-armored Fire Bull Emperor originally cultivated the fire elemental cultivation technique. In addition to the fire elemental divine pearl that Gu Fei threw to it, the iron-armored Fire Bull Emperor's cultivation base rose along with it. Then you guys can continue. Yang Zhan shook his head helplessly. The time of the trial was almost up and they were about to leave this place. However, his cultivation base still hadn't broken through to the Xiantian realm. This was definitely not a good thing for Yang Zhan. Yang Zhan didn't pay any more attention to Yin Shi and the others. He went straight to the cultivation room. Today he was going to try to break through to the Xiantian realm. Success or failure would be decided by one move. Yun Shi and the others looked at Yang Zhan's back with envy. On the 8th day, the young cultivators who entered the trial through the 9 stone gates continued to arrive at the Cloudy Sky City. The city was overcrowded. On this evening, Wang Long finally arrived at the Cloudy Sky City. At this time, Wang Long was in an extremely sorry state. His clothes were ragged and hung on his body like rags. There were 5 or 6 young cultivators who entered the Cloudy Sky City with Wang Long. These people must have formed a group to make it to the Cloudy Sky City. This was actually a good method. One must know that one person's power was limited. However, if one formed a group, the chances of successfully passing the trial would increase greatly. Wang Long came, and so did Ling Feng. However, compared to Wang Long, Ling Feng was much more miserable. He was crippled and had to crawl to the Cloudy Sky City. No one sympathized with him. Those who participated in the Ying Tian sect's entrance trial couldn't wait for others to suffer. Who would be willing to help or save others? If others lost the right to enter the Ying Tian sect, their chances of successfully entering the Ying Tian sect would increase. In the primogenitor's realm, where the strong preyed on the weak, everyone was very cold and ruthless. When Wang Long saw Ling Feng, he was sitting in the corner of the north gate. He looked at Ling Feng and suddenly sighed. Then, he left without saying anything. Ling Feng naturally saw Wang Long. His lips moved, but in the end he didn't say anything. He had already lost the right to enter the Ying Tian sect. With a crippled leg, he was the loser of the entrance trial. Wang Long, on the other hand, was not injured and had successfully arrived at the Cloudy Sky City. He was the winner and could enter the Ying Tian sect. Compared to Ling Feng, Wang Long was destined to soar, but Ling Feng's fate was destined to be a tragedy. Of course, Ling Feng was still alive. Compared to Lei Dong, he was much luckier. On the 9th day, an extremely powerful aura suddenly came from the cultivation room of the Cloudy Sky City's Lord Mansion. An astonishing pressure spread out from the mansion. What's going on? What happened? Yun Shi and the others were indescribably shocked outside the main gate of the mansion. A powerful pressure of the Xiantian realm had arrived, causing them to involuntarily be moved. As for the cultivators outside the City Lord Mansion, they were utterly shocked. All the cultivators in the Cloudy Sky City felt the powerful pressure coming from the mansion. The entire city was shocked. This aura, Wang Long happened to be near the mansion. When he felt the mighty aura coming from the mansion, he couldn't help but be shocked. He actually broke through to the Xiantian realm. How is this possible? Wang Long hurriedly rushed out of the mansion. Suddenly, a figure charged out from the cultivation room to appear in the open space before the main hall. A formidable innate aura of power radiated out from the figure, causing the cultivators outside the city lord residence to feel suffocated. So, it's really him. At this time, Wang Long, who was outside the mansion, was shocked. He couldn't believe that the person inside the mansion was Yang Zhan. Yang Zhan's cultivation had actually broken through to the Xiantian realm. How was this possible? Although Wang Long couldn't believe it, the truth spoke louder than words. Yang Zhan had actually become a Xiantian realm expert. Chapter 3710. The pressure of the Xiantian realm spread out in all directions from the city, Lord's mansion, shaking the entire city. Even the city Lord couldn't help but be moved. This person was only at the peak of the acquired realm before. How could he have broken through to the Xiantian realm in such a short time? Could this also be the work of that Gu Fei? The city, Lord thought to himself. He was really curious as to what kind of existence the black-clothed young man in the main hall was. How could he have such a method? At this moment, Yang Zhan, who was standing in the open space in front of the main hall, was extremely excited. His eyes were as bright as the stars, but the divine light in his eyes began to fade quickly. The powerful Xiantian realm aura also receded like the tide, completely disappearing from Yang Zhan's body. At this moment, his entire person seemed to have changed. His skin became smoother, and there seemed to be a layer of light flowing on it. Yang Zhan's cultivation had finally broken through from the peak of the acquired realm to the Xiantian realm. This was definitely a leap. Whether it was his 5 senses, physical strength, speed, etc., they were all greatly enhanced. At this moment, he only felt that his entire person was different. It was as if he had been reborn, Especially at this moment, Yang Zhan had divine will. This was the difference between an acquired realm cultivator and a Xiantian realm cultivator. Divine will spread out from Yang Zhan's body, and in the next moment, countless information directly rushed into his mind from all directions. Buzz! Yang Zhan only felt his vision go black, and he almost fainted. This feeling was unprecedented. No one had taught him how to use divine will, and this was a big lesson for him. He quickly retracted his divine will, and then slowly spread it out. This time he was very careful. He wanted to explore how to use divine will by himself. This is, as his divine will spread out under the cover of his divine will, he felt many auras, some strong and some weak. These auras were like lamps, some bright and some dark. Among the cultivators outside the city, there were actually 9 extremely strong auras. These 9 people, each one of them was as dazzling as a divine sun. Xiantian realm experts? Yang Zhan was extremely shocked. There were actually so many Xiantian realm experts in this cloud sky city, and this was what he sensed with his divine will. There should be more inborn experts in Yuntian City than these 9. Little guy, didn't your parents tell you that you can't use your divine sense to investigate others? At this time, a voice suddenly sounded in Yang Zhan's mind. Yang Zhan was startled and quickly withdrew his divine sense. Actually, he also knew that the people outside just didn't want to be calculative with him. Otherwise, those inborn experts would have attacked him long ago. His own cultivation had just broken through to the Xiantian realm, but he didn't know how long those people outside had broken through to the Xiantian realm, so their divine senses were naturally much more powerful. Yang Zhan was one of Gu Fei's people. At this time, anyone with a brain wouldn't be stupid enough to touch Gu Fei's people. Meanwhile, the iron-clad Fire Bull Emperor lay outside the entrance of the hall, and it seemed to be on the verge of falling asleep. But everyone knew that this beast emperor was extremely dangerous. Yang Zhan suddenly sensed a familiar aura. He quickly turned around, only to see the figure that was about to leave. Wang Long. Yang Zhan pondered for a moment. His right foot stepped on the ground, and he immediately leaped over the wall that was more than 2 feet high. Then he landed behind that person. Wang Long, Brother Wang, since you're here, why don't you go in and have a gathering? Yang Zhan looked at that person and said. At this time, seeing Yang Zhan suddenly come out from the city, Lord's mansion, the cultivators gathered outside the city, Lord's mansion, were very surprised. Sigh. Wang Long sighed and then slowly turned around. He looked at Yang Zhan with a somewhat complicated expression. When he thought of the day when he chose to part ways with Gu Fei because he was afraid of offending the Feng clan and Lei clan, he regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. Congratulations, Brother Yang, on your great progress in cultivation. Wang Long said bitterly. Originally, he had the highest cultivation among the three of them, and Yang Zhan was the weakest. However, now he was still in the half-step to inborn realm, while Yang Zhan was already an inborn expert. Moreover, Yang Zhan had just broken through to the Xiantian realm. If he had continued to follow Gu Fei, would he have also become an inborn expert? It was absolutely impossible to say that Wang Long did not envy Yang Zhan. He was extremely envious and regretful. However, it was all too late now. A missed opportunity was a missed opportunity. There was no turning back. Where's Ling Feng? Why aren't you two together? Yang Zhan asked. Wang Long and Ling Feng had advanced and retreated together that day. Now, only Wang Long and Ling Feng were seen. Could it be that Ling Feng had died in the trial? That day, the three of them had traveled together to Yingtian Sect's courtyard. However, only Yang Zhan and Wang Long had met now. Ling Feng was still paralyzed at the city gate. Wang Long wanted to say something, but hesitated. In the end, he did not say anything. Ling Feng had lost a leg and was out of the trial. It was impossible for him to rise again. Even if he could make it out of the trial, he was destined to be annihilated in the world of cultivation. In fact, if Wang Long and Ling Feng had stood on Gu Fei's side that day, they would not have ended up like this. Wang Long was doing well. At least, he had arrived at Cloudy Sky City safely. However, Ling Feng was extremely miserable. Seeing that Wang Long wanted to say something, Yang Zhan thought that Wang Long had something that he could not say. Hence, he did not pursue the matter. Brother Wang, do you want to go in and have a seat? Yang Zhan asked. I think we should forget about it. Wang Long really did not have the face to see Gu Fei. In that case, let's meet again at Yingtian Sect. Yang Zhan said. Wang Long was unlucky, but he could not blame anyone else. If he had been willing to support Gu Fei and stand on Gu Fei's side, he might have been able to break through the Hotian realm and become an innate realm expert. Goodbye. Wang Long cupped his hands at Yang Zhan and turned to leave. Soon, he disappeared into the crowd. Brother Yang, congratulations on breaking through to the innate realm. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the crowd. Then, a cultivator who looked like a child walked out from the crowd. Feng Yu. When Yang Zhan saw this person, he was shocked. This person was the little overlord of the Feng clan, Feng Yu. This Feng Yu was incredible. He was an existence that had surpassed the innate realm. This made Yang Zhan feel flattered. Why did this person, whom he looked up to, come to find him? Brother Yang, what happened between us that day was just a misunderstanding. I, your little brother, am here to ask for your forgiveness. Feng, you came before Yang Zhan and cupped his hands at him. What is this guy trying to do? Yang Zhan looked at Feng Yu cautiously. He was bewildered. Chapter 37:11. Those who acted tough in front of Gu Fei that day finally realized how stupid they were. Gu Fei's strength had reached an unimaginable level. Even the city lord of Cloud Sky City had to obediently wait outside if he wanted to see him. The city lord of Cloud Sky City was a golden immortal. A golden immortal, even in Yingtian Sect, was an existence on the same level as an elder's disciple. Feng Yu of the Feng clan and the other cultivators of the Lei clan hurriedly came out, wanting to resolve the misunderstanding between them and Gu Fei. To them, this was definitely a misunderstanding. Our brother Fei isn't someone you can meet just because you want to. All of you scram. Yang Zhan didn't give any face to Feng Yu and the others. Mother ***, how powerful were these people that day? Even though they were defeated by Gu Fei, they were still arrogant. These people only thought that their clans were powerful enough to ignore Gu Fei. However, it seemed that the Feng clan behind Feng Yu and the Lei clan behind Lei Dong were simply a joke in front of Gu Fei. Gu Fei simply didn't put these guys in his eyes. Feng Yu was shocked and angry. He didn't think that Yang Zhan would dare to talk to him like this, telling him to scram. He almost couldn't help but attack. A puny Xiantian cultivator dared to be presumptuous in front of him. If it was an ordinary person, he would have already slapped him to death. However, Yang Zhan wasn't an ordinary person. He had the backing of Gu Fei. If he slapped Yang Zhan to death, then he would definitely be buried together with Yang Zhan. He didn't want to be buried together with Yang Zhan. "I'll endure." Feng Yu suppressed the anger in his chest and smiled at Yang Zhan. "Brother Yang, please introduce me to Brother Gu." Feng Yu will remember this kindness." This was Feng Yu's promise. Ever since his debut, Feng Yu, the little overlord of the Feng clan, had never been so easy to talk to. "Scram!" Yang Zhan looked at Feng Yu with disdain and said coldly, "You. Very well." Feng Yu almost exploded from anger. He glared at Yang Zhan and walked away without looking back. The other cultivators of the Feng clan quickly followed. When the Thunder clan's cultivators saw this, they didn't dare to say anything and tactfully scrammed away. Lei Dong had died in vain. No one dared to look for Gu Fei to settle the score. The Thunder clan still wanted to resolve the previous misunderstanding with Gu Fei. But now, this misunderstanding could not be resolved. "TSK, you little shrimps want to see our brother Fei? Can't you see that even golden immortals have to wait obediently?" Yang Zhan said disdainfully. At this time, all the surrounding cultivators looked at Yang Zhan in awe. Even a gold immortal would have to obediently wait. Could that Gu Fei be even stronger than a gold immortal? Someone whispered. Yang Zhan no longer paid attention to the others, directly turning around and walking into the city lord's mansion. At this time, he needed to stabilize his cultivation. Moreover, he had just broken through to the Xiantian realm, and his body was undergoing some kind of change. The impurities in his body were beginning to be expelled from his body. That Yang Zhan actually dared to look down on me. When we return to Ying Tian's sect, I'll make him pay. Feng Yu turned around and glanced in the direction of the city lord's mansion. He, Feng Yu, was not someone to be trifled with. Let's see how long Gu Fei can protect him. Without Gu Fei's protection, that Yang Zhan is just a scum. Lei Rin of the Thunder Clan stared coldly at the city lord's mansion. His Thunder Clan was a family with an immortal. Moreover, Lei Dong's elder brother, Lei Zhen, was a legacy disciple of Ying Tian's sect's Ying Tian side courtyard. Moreover, he had already cultivated to the immortal realm. Lei Dong was dead. As his elder brother, Lei Zhen naturally wouldn't let this matter rest. Many people were waiting to watch a good show. After returning to Ying Tian's side courtyard, there was still an entrance tournament. To be more precise, it was an entrance tournament. The top 10 disciples in the entrance tournament would be able to become the disciples of the elders. Time passed, and Cloudy Sky City gradually regained its peace. On the 10th day, early in the morning, the doors of the city lord's mansion were opened from the inside. A figure walked out of the hall. The iron-armored Fire Bull Emperor, who was lying outside the hall's entrance, immediately stood up. A blazing aura spread from this beast emperor's body. "Brother Gu, you finally came out." City Lord Yun Tian, who had been waiting outside for so many days, quickly brought Yun Ao and Yun Shi inside. City Lord Yun Tian was very polite to Gu Fei. Seeing that their father was actually talking to Gu Fei as an equal, Yun Ao and Yun Shi were extremely shocked. "It's time to leave." Gu Fei looked up at the sky and said. At this moment, Yang Zhan came out of nowhere. "You're leaving." Although Yun Shi already knew that Gu Fei would leave, when Gu Fei really said that he was leaving, she was actually a little reluctant. How could this be? "Hee, my little princess, are we going to stay here forever?" Yang Zhan said to Yun Shi with a smile. Gu Fei looked at Yun Shi and said, "To this world we are just passers-by." Hearing Gu Fei's words, Yun Shi's expression couldn't help but become a little sad. Brother Fei, is it almost time? Yang Zhan no longer paid attention to Yun Shi and the others and looked at Gu Fei. Yes, about an hour or so. Gu Fei nodded and said, Haha, we're going to enter Ying Tian's sect. Yang Zhan was overjoyed. Entering Ying Tian's sect was his dream. Hearing that they would be back in an hour or so, he was naturally very excited. Ying Tian's sect? You guys really came from the same place. City Lord Yun Tian suddenly said, Brother Gu, please take us out of here. City Lord Yun Tian suddenly knelt in front of Gu Fei. As soon as City Lord Yun Tian knelt, Yun Shi and Yun Ao also quickly knelt. What are you guys doing? Seeing this, Yang Zhan became unhappy. Gu Fei didn't say anything and only looked at Yun Shi. The strongest beings here are golden immortals. We have no future here. I heard that the place you guys came from has even stronger beings. We want to become even stronger. City Lord Yun Tian quickly said. One had to admit that City Lord Yun Tian was very ambitious. At this moment, everyone outside the City Lord Mansion was shocked. The City Lord, a golden immortal, actually knelt in front of a black-robed youth. Are my eyes playing tricks on me? How is this possible? Everyone couldn't believe it. Gu Fei thought for a moment and said, If I take you guys out of here, what benefits will I get? There's no free lunch in this world. Something like a pie falling from the sky will never happen in front of Gu Fei. If you want something, you must pay a price. No one can casually succeed. When City Lord Yun Tian and the others heard this, they were startled. For a moment, they did not know what to say. Chapter 37:12. There is no such thing as a free lunch in this world. If the Cloud Sky City Lord wanted to leave the training ground, he would have to pay a certain price. Think about it carefully. There are still 2 hours left. Gu Fei looked at the Cloud Sky City Lord indifferently and said, To him, bringing the Cloud Sky City Lord and the others out of the training ground was not a difficult task. It could be said that it was as easy as lifting a hand. Gu Fei no longer paid attention to the Cloud Sky City Lord and the others. He turned around and walked back into the main hall. If there is nothing special, don't disturb me. As the door closed, Gu Fei's voice could be heard. Yes, Brother Fei. Yang Zhan quickly said. The iron-armored Flaming Bull King also let out a low roar and looked at the gate with its big red eyes in awe. At this time, countless young disciples of the Cloud Sky City who were participating in the Ying Tian sect's entrance trial were walking on the streets. In less than 2 hours, they would be returning to the ancestral world. Everyone was very excited because once they returned to the Ying Tian sect, they would be able to enter the Ying Tian sect to cultivate. Although the ancestral mountain courtyard was the weakest courtyard among the 36 courtyards of the Ying Tian sect, as long as they could enter the ancestral god courtyard, they would have a chance to become famous. After all, they were disciples of the Ying Tian sect. For ordinary cultivators, this was definitely a step to the heavens. However, at this time, a scream suddenly came from the north gate of the city. There was a commotion on the street as the young cultivators were all hiding from something. A person fell to the ground with a small black arrow stuck between his eyebrows. The place where the arrow hit was oozing black blood. Unexpectedly, someone had killed someone on the street just as they were about to leave the training ground. At this time, a group of soldiers led by a general rushed over and dispersed the crowd. Poison arrow. The general was a middle-aged man at the peak of the post-liminary realm. He squatted down and carefully examined the young cultivator on the ground. No one would kill someone for no reason, and no one would be killed for no reason. The murderer must have hidden himself and could not be found in a short period of time. The general of the Cloud Sky City immediately ordered people to carry the corpse away and left. It seems like Qin Mu from the Qin clan was killed. Could it be the Chun clan's archenemy, the Bull clan? The enmity between these two families runs very deep. They have been fighting for hundreds of years. The surrounding cultivators were all discussing. In these less than 2 hours, everyone felt insecure. It was definitely not a good thing to be targeted by an enemy when they offended someone. Soon, another scream was heard from another place in the Sky Market City. The people nearby quickly rushed over, only to see a person lying in a pool of blood in a small alley. He had long since died. Another person was killed. Many people chose to kill the descendants or disciples of their enemies at this time. These people did not want to see their enemies enter the Ying Tian sect and become its disciples. The soldiers and generals in Cloudy Sky City turned a blind eye to this situation. In less than an hour, hundreds of people had been killed in the Cloud Heaven City. These people naturally died with grievances. Just as they were about to leave the trial, they were killed by someone. Many unlucky fellows died with their eyes wide open. These bastards! Yang Zhan was shocked to see the trial takers in the city killing each other. Did he have to kill the disciples of the Lei clan and the Feng clan? Lei Rin, give me your life. At this time, in a small alley, Wang Long held a spear and forced a young cultivator into a corner. Wang Long, you want to kill me? The young cultivator was Lei Rin, a disciple of the Lei clan. Lei Dong was not the only disciple of the Lei clan who came to participate in the trial. Who will know if I kill you? Wang Long stared at Lei Ren with a murderous look. There were people in the Lei clan who had become a true disciple of the Ying Tian sect. This made many people not dare to attack the disciples of the Lei clan who participated in the trial. However, Wang Long had no choice but to kill this guy. This was because Lei Ren had tried to kill him just now. If he was not lucky, he would have died in Lei Ren's hands. Lei Ren's forehead was sweating. Go to hell. Wang Long could not be bothered to talk nonsense with this guy. The spear in his hand pierced towards Lei Ren. The spearhead turned into a cold light and flew towards Lei Ren's eyebrows. Wang Long was a half-step too inborn. When the spear pierced out, there was an explosion in the air. Lei Ren was taken aback and quickly dodged. The spearhead in Wang Long's hand brushed past Lei Ren's forehead. A strand of hair fell from the air. Lei Ren reached out and touched it. When he looked down, he saw that his hand was covered in blood. There was a sharp pain on his forehead, and a bloody scar had appeared. Swoosh! Lei Ren did not dare to fight anymore. He flew into the sky and tried to escape. Humph! Wang Long sneered. The spear in his hand seemed to have turned into a black dragon. It instantly caught up to Lei Ren and nailed him to death in the void. At this time, there were shadows flashing nearby. Someone had noticed something strange in the alley and was approaching it quickly. Wang Long quickly withdrew the spear in his hand. Before Lei Ren's body fell to the ground, he had already rushed out of the alley and disappeared quickly. He did not even take Lei Ren's storage bag. Just as Wang Long left, a black shadow appeared in the alley. Lei Ren, dead. This person was tall and skinny. He was shrouded in black and stood in the dark like a ghost. In the next moment, a few more figures rushed into the alley. You killed Lei Ren? When those people saw Lei Ren dead on the ground, they immediately surrounded the black-clothed man. Humph! Watch your words. Why would I kill Lei Ren? The black-clothed man said coldly. A cold and gloomy aura immediately spread out from the black-clothed man. Those people were shocked. They seemed to have suffered a great shock and could not help but take a few steps back. The black-clothed man walked out of the alley, and the few people quickly made way for him, not daring to stop him at all. I didn't expect to meet this evil star. After seeing the man in black leave for a while, the young cultivator who was the leader wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and breathed a sigh of relief. Who is this from the Cho clan? A young cultivator asked in horror. Who else could it be? The cultivator, who was the leader, said with lingering fear. He really disdained to kill Lei Ren. Even if he killed Lei Ren, the Lei clan would not dare to seek revenge. Someone said in horror, his voice trembling. Chapter 37:13. Among the human clan forces outside the primogenitor mountain range, the Cho family was the strongest. Even the Thunder clan could not catch up to them. Cho Tian was the most outstanding rising star of the Cho family. He was already a half-step immortal at such a young age. Given his character, as long as Lei Rin did not provoke him, he would definitely not attack Lei Rin. However, the news of Lei Rin being killed had spread far and wide. All the cultivators in the city were dumbfounded. The Thunder clan had definitely suffered a heavy loss this time. Not only was Lei Dong dead, but even Lei Ren was killed in a small alley. At this moment, the entire Cloudy Sky City was in a frenzy of attacks. People were constantly being attacked, and some even fought on the streets. Many outstanding disciples from various clans had stayed in Cloudy Sky City forever. A terrifying atmosphere enveloped the entire Cloudy Sky City. The city lord of Cloudy Sky City had no time to care about what was happening in the city. He was thinking about how to get Gu Fei to bring him out of this place. Yun Shi and Yun Ao, the siblings, did not care about the attacks outside. All of this had nothing to do with them. Even if all the outsiders were to die, they wouldn't even frown. Only Yang Zhan could not bear to see such a scene. After all, they came from the same place. However, he could not do anything about it. He also did not have the ability to stop it. In Yang Zhan's opinion, there was only one person who could frighten all the cultivators in the city. That person was Gu Fei. Gu Fei was not in the main hall. Instead, he had entered his inner world and arrived at the place where Yen Er lived in seclusion. He saw that Yen Er was holding the little girl he had saved and was feeding the little girl. Gu Fei only watched from afar. He did not want to break the warm scene in front of him. He just watched quietly from the side. Unknowingly, he stood there for half an hour before he came out of his inner world. Gu Fei opened the door of the main hall and walked out. What's going on? He immediately sensed the smell of blood that permeated the Cloudy Sky City. In an instant, his divine will enveloped the entire Cloudy Sky City. These guys, Gu Fei was speechless. With the help of his spiritual force, the movements of all the cultivators in the city instantly appeared in his mind. There was actually a rain of blood and foul winds in the city. Countless cultivators were attacking their enemies. This was simply too crazy. The time was almost up, but these fellows were still killing each other. Gu Fei did not make a move. Since these fellows wanted to court death, he would let them. Brother Fei! When Yang Zhan saw Gu Fei come out from the main hall, he immediately ran over. The iron-armored Fire Bull Emperor also instantly woke up. It shook its head and wagged its tail as it came to Gu Fei's side and rubbed against Gu Fei in a flattering manner. It's almost time. Have you made up your mind? Gu Fei said as he looked at the Yuntian City Lord and his family. The Yuntian City Lord hesitated for a moment before he took out a wooden box from his storage bag and handed it to Gu Fei. Yang Zhan quickly took the wooden box and handed it to Gu Fei. Gu Fei was a little curious. There was an unusual aura coming from the wooden box. Could there be some kind of heaven-defying treasure in this inferior world? The laws of heaven and earth in this inferior world were too incomplete, and the spiritual energy was too thin. It was impossible for a heaven-defying immortal treasure to be born. He took the wooden box and directly opened it. At this moment, the Yuntian City Lord and the others looked at Gu Fei nervously. This was a moment that concerned the fate of their family. Gu Fei looked at the wooden box in his hand and saw a fist-sized wooden bead inside. The unusual aura was coming from the wooden bead. How could there be such a thing in this inferior world? Gu Fei was really moved because this ordinary-looking wooden bead was actually an extraordinary item. It was a sovereign inner core of an extreme Tao sovereign. This was a sovereign inner core left behind by a divine tree of extreme Tao. It could be called an ancestral core. There seemed to be naturally formed patterns on the wooden bead. A very weak aura of the extreme Tao principle spread out from the wooden bead. The extreme Tao essence inside the wooden bead had almost completely disappeared. Otherwise, the Yuntian city lord would not have been able to obtain this wooden bead. The power of the extreme Tao was too strong. Just a strand of the power of the extreme Tao could crush everything and cause terrifying destruction. In this inferior world, if a true power of the extreme Tao appeared here, the entire inferior world would probably collapse. Although the extreme Tao essence inside the wooden bead had almost completely disappeared, there was still an extremely weak aura of life hidden inside the wooden bead. The wooden bead still had vitality. In fact, this wooden bead was also the seed of the divine tree of extreme Tao. As long as there was enough essence qi, it could regain its vitality and germinate. Gu Fei was very curious about what kind of tree this wooden bead belonged to. "All right, I'll take it," Gu Fei said calmly. He then put the wooden bead back into the wooden box and kept it in his inner world. The Yuntian city lord was overjoyed. You're willing to take us out of here?" The Yuntian city lord asked with a trembling voice. He was very excited. Gu Fei nodded. Hearing this, the Yuntian city lord and the others were ecstatic. "All of you, go pack up everything," the Yuntian city lord said to Yun Shi and Yun Ao. "Yes, father." Yun Shi and Yun Ao quickly rushed out and disappeared behind the city lord's palace. Just as Yun Shi and Yun Ao left, the sky above Yuntian city suddenly shook. In the next moment, a giant whirlpool appeared in the sky. At this moment, everyone looked up at the giant whirlpool in the sky in shock. Rumble! Waves of shocking noises came down from the sky. Soon, an immortal light rushed out of the whirlpool and lit up the sky. The cultivators who were illuminated by the immortal light turned into a mortal light that shot into the sky and disappeared into the whirlpool. These cultivators who disappeared into the whirlpool were the young cultivators who were participating in the Tian sect's entrance trial. Rays of immortal light shot into the sky from Yuntian city. The scene was so spectacular that the native cultivators in Yuntian city were dumbfounded. "It's time." Gu Fei raised his head and looked at the huge whirlpool that enveloped the entire sky with a calm expression. He could do this too. The guys from the Tian sect had left some kind of immortal mark on the cultivators. Once the time was up, the experts from the Tian sect in the primogenitor realm would use a great technique to summon the living cultivators back. Chapter 37:14. In the Tian sect, the primogenitor mountain courtyard was divided into two parts, the ground and the sky. A sacred mountain that seemed to have existed since ancient times floated in the sky. This was the upper courtyard of the primogenitor mountain courtyard, while the ground was the lower courtyard. The lower courtyard was where the true disciples and the new azure-robed disciples cultivated. As for the upper courtyard, it was where the elders and hall masters cultivated. Only the disciples of the elders and summoned disciples could enter the upper courtyard. In the square of the lower courtyard, 9 ancient stone doors were slowly opening. Ancient immortal runes began to appear on the stone doors, emitting powerful immortal light. To mortals, this was definitely a legendary immortal, but to the immortals of the Tian sect, it was nothing out of the ordinary. As the 9 stone doors opened, the immortal light from the 9 stone doors formed a huge vortex in the sky above the square. Soon, rays of immortal light rushed out of the vortex and landed on the square. The immortal light dissipated, revealing many figures. These people were looking around blankly. They were the young cultivators who had come out of the trial to participate in the Tian sect's entrance trial. "I'm back." "Ha! I'm back." Many people shouted excitedly. Some even wept bitterly. It really wasn't easy to make it back here. It could be said that it was a narrow escape from death. Those who could make it back here were all very lucky. As the rays of immortal light descended from the sky, the entire square was soon filled with people. Everyone felt as if they had just escaped death. However, there were some exceptions. An immortal light larger than the average one fell from the sky, and two figures fell directly to the ground. The two guys hugged each other tightly, their bodies covered in blood. The two guys twitched a few times, and then there was no more sound. The surrounding people were shocked and quickly dodged to the side. "Perishing together, awesome!" someone exclaimed. The two of them fought with their lives at the last moment. They couldn't help but admire them. Just how much hatred did these two guys have between them? Everyone looked at this scene in shock. At this time, another huge ray of immortal light rushed out of the vortex in the sky and landed on the ground. The immortal light dissipated, and three figures appeared in front of everyone. In the next moment, the three of them didn't even look at where they were before they roared and started fighting each other. Outside the Ing Tian Courtyard's plaza, there were many white-robed disciples of the Ing Tian sect. These were all true disciples, but these people completely ignored the three guys fighting. Soon, a black-clothed young man killed the two young men who had besieged him on the spot. Seeing this scene, the surrounding people were stunned. This black-robed youth was very strong. Baleful energy curled around his body. His hair was still dripping with blood, and his body was stained with blood. Although he killed the two cultivators, he was also injured quite badly. Buzz! The void trembled, and the vortex of immortal light that enveloped the entire square continued to spin. Beams of immortal light continued to descend from the sky, and there were even corpses falling out of the immortal light. The brutal killing continued in Cloudy Sky City. The disciples of the opposing factions all wanted to kill off their enemies before leaving the trial grounds. In the trial grounds, Cloudy Sky City could be said to have set off a bloody storm. Countless cultivators died. Even if some entered the immortal light, they were still shot down by an arrow. Everyone went crazy, and their eyes were bloodshot. This caused the natives in Cloudy Sky City to be inexplicably shocked. Were these guys crazy? Why were they killing each other? Outside the Primogenitor Mountain, there were more or less some conflicts between the major clans. Some were even mortal enemies with irreconcilable hatred. Taking advantage of this opportunity, many people wanted to settle old and new grudges at the same time. Brother Fei, this! In the open space in front of the City Lord Palace, Yangzhan looked at Gu Fei and wanted to say something. Everyone has their own fate. Let them be. Gu Fei looked at the scene outside the City Lord Palace indifferently. He would not interfere because all of this was brought upon by those guys outside. At this time, a beam of immortal light descended from the sky and instantly enveloped Yangzhan. This is the City Lord and the others were shocked. In the next moment, Yangzhan shot up into the sky under their shocked gazes. Shit! Yangzhan only had time to roar before he instantly disappeared into the whirlpool in the sky. At this time, almost all the cultivators in Cloudy Sky City had left. At this time, a beam of immortal light fell towards Gu Fei. Brother Gu! Seeing this, the City Lord could not help but be shocked and hurriedly shouted. It should be noted that once Gu Fei was enveloped by the immortal light, he would instantly disappear. Seeing the immortal light rushing towards Gu Fei, the City Lord and the others immediately became anxious. At this time, Gu Fei waved his hand and directly put the City Lord into his inner world. Mu! The iron-armored Fire Ox Emperor could not sit still anymore and directly lay down at Gu Fei's feet. Gu Fei glanced at the Beast Emperor and then also waved his hand to put the Beast Emperor into his inner world. The immortal light fell and instantly enveloped Gu Fei. In the next moment, Gu Fei was bathed in the immortal light and shot up into the sky. In an instant, he rushed into the whirlpool in the sky and instantly disappeared. Gu Fei passed through the barrier between heaven and earth, and soon he felt the aura of the Primogenitor's realm. Swoosh! The immortal light dissipated and Gu Fei looked around. He saw that he was already standing on the square of Ingtian side courtyard and the surrounding cultivators were looking at him. Brother Fei! At this time a guy ran over. This guy was Yangzhan. Being able to get close to a big tree like Gu Fei was definitely the best decision he had ever made in his life. On the square, Wang Long and Feng you also saw Gu Fei, and their expressions were somewhat complicated. Many cultivators did not know how powerful Gu Fei was, but they were very clear that this Gu Fei was incredible as he could compete with an immortal god. Even if this Gu Fei was not an immortal god, he was most likely already a half-step immortal god. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to subdue that iron-armored fire ox emperor. There were still quite a number of people who could return to Ingtian's side courtyard from the trial ground. There were more than 100,000 cultivators who entered the trial ground, but now there were less than 10,000 left. Those who couldn't come out from the trial ground had already perished inside. Among the less than 10,000 cultivators on the square, a large number of them were seriously injured during the trial. There were also many who had broken limbs. Ling Feng was also on the square, looking at Gu Fei and Yang Zhan with a complicated expression. He was filled with regret. If it wasn't because he was afraid of offending the Thunder Clan and Feng Clan with Gu Fei, he would not have ended up in such a miserable state. With a crippled leg, he, Ling Feng, had completely lost the qualification to enter Ingtian's side courtyard. In this way, another group of people were directly swept away. There were only 1,208 people who were truly qualified to enter Ingtian's side courtyard. This was the cruel reality of Ingtian's side courtyard. Chapter 37:15. Ing Tianzong's entrance trial was too cruel. In the end, even though close to 10,000 people came out of the trial, there were only 1,208 people who passed the trial. Out of the 100,000 young cultivators that participated in the trial, only 1,208 people had the qualifications to enter Ingtian sect. This result shocked everyone. This was the cruelty of reality. Those that failed the trial left, some even died, while those that succeeded stayed. Those young cultivators that were injured in the trial after being treated by the people of Ingtian sect also left. Only 1,208 people stayed to accept the next stage of the competition. This competition would determine who had the qualifications to become a true disciple of Ingtian sect. And most importantly, this was also a good day for the elders of Ingtian sect to accept disciples. If anyone was chosen by the elders of Ingtian sect during the competition and was accepted as a disciple, then that was truly reaching the heavens in a single step. The status of an elder disciple in Ingtian sect was much higher than that of a normal true disciple. This competition was set for half a month later. The cultivators had just returned from the trial and needed to rest and adjust their condition. Gu Fei returned to his residence. At this time, it was already difficult to see the scene of people moving around. It had to be known that the 100,000 people that participated in the trial were almost completely annihilated. Of course, those that survived and returned to the primogenitor's realm definitely had their own strengths. What, my little brother died. At this time, in Lei Zhen's residence, in the living room of the lower courtyard, Lei Zhen was angrily glaring at another disciple of the Thunder Clan. Under Lei Zhen's gaze, this Thunder Clan disciple trembled in fear. Sir, it was that person called Yang Zhan who ordered the Beast King to kill your little brother. The Thunder Clan disciple lied on the ground as he trembled. Yang Zhan, I want you to accompany me in death. Lei Zhen said through gritted teeth. His eyes revealed a fiendish aura. He wanted to kill someone. He only had one little brother, yet he was killed. How could he accept this? As night fell, the area around Gu Fei and Yang Zhan's residence was very quiet. At Gu Fei's level of cultivation, it didn't matter if he didn't eat or drink, but Yang Zhan couldn't. He wasn't an immortal god, he was just a small cultivator in the Xiantian realm. He still needed to eat. Yang Zhan immediately started a bonfire. Then he took out some of the beast meat he had obtained from the trial grounds and roasted it over the fire. Soon, the fragrance of meat filled the air. Gu Fei and Yang Zhan sat by the fire, drinking wine while eating meat, enjoying themselves. However, right at this moment, a black shadow suddenly descended from the sky. grabbed Yang Zhan, and soared into the sky, disappearing into the darkness. Humph. Gu Fei smiled. In the next moment, he stood up, took a step forward, and instantly disappeared on the spot. In the back mountain of Ying Tian Courtyard's lower courtyard, in a remote forest, the black-robed man directly threw Yang Zhan to the ground. Moreover, he didn't seal Yang Zhan's cultivation. Who are you? Why do you want to capture me? Yang Zhan stared at the black-robed man and asked in a low voice. The black-robed man didn't say anything. He directly sent a palm towards Yang Zhan. The violent palm energy spread out, shattering the surrounding trees. Yang Zhan felt like he was about to suffocate. He wanted to dodge, but he found that he couldn't even move a finger. He could only watch helplessly as the black-robed man's palm bombarded towards him. In his eyes, the palm was rapidly enlarging. My life is over. Yang Zhan's extreme joy turned to sorrow. He had just obtained the qualifications to enter Ying Tian's sect, but he was about to die. He was very unwilling. In fact, Yang Zhan didn't expect that there would be someone who dared to attack him in Ying Tian Courtyard. This was simply not putting Ying Tian Courtyard in their eyes. Bang! Just as Yang Zhan closed his eyes and waited for death, he heard a muffled sound of impact. In the next moment, he felt himself being sent flying backwards. Some people were surprised that someone actually dared to jump out to save this guy. All of you die for me. The black-robed man waved his hands, and golden threads that were almost tangible rushed out from his hands. In an instant, they interweaved into a golden net that enveloped the two of them. The person who had saved Yang Zhan was Gu Fei. He saw that wherever the golden net passed, the trees were cut into countless pieces, and the net enveloped him from above. Gu Fei smiled and waved his right hand. A divine light rushed out from his finger, like a divine whip, and fiercely lashed at the golden net that was enveloping them. This strike actually split the entire golden net in the middle, leaving behind a bunch of rotten things. What? At this moment, the black-robed man couldn't help but be shocked. The opponent's strength far exceeded his expectations. And at the same time that the black-robed man was shocked, Gu Fei silently appeared in front of the black-robed man. With a stretch of his hand, he tore off the black-robed man's mask. It's you? Yang Zhan saw the person and immediately cried out in surprise. Leijin? Gu Fei was also very surprised. After returning to Ying Tian's side courtyard, he sealed his cultivation. Right now, he was only in the realm of immortals. From Lei Zhen's point of view, Gu Fei was not an immortal. However, he was able to block his attack and easily tear off his mask. He was completely dumbfounded. Swoosh! Lei Zhen retreated with extreme speed. Gu Fei reached out with his right hand and grabbed Lei Zhen, who was flying out, and pulled him back. What are you trying to do? Lei Zhen's shock was no small matter. This guy was simply a monster. He could actually contend against him. He was an immortal god. Kill you! Gu Fei looked at Lei Zhen, who was being grabbed by the neck, and said calmly, as if he was talking about something unimportant. You dare to kill me? Aren't you afraid that the entire Ying Tian sect will hunt you down? Lei Zhen gritted his teeth. At this moment, bang! Without any warning, Lei Zhen's head exploded and turned into a mist of blood. His primordial spirit also dissipated in the void. Seeing this, Yang Zhan was scared out of his wits. This Gu Fei was really audacious. He actually dared to kill Lei Zhen. This was going to be big trouble. Lei Zhen did not expect that Gu Fei would really kill him. Go! Gu Fei grabbed Yang Zhan and instantly disappeared into the forest. Just as Gu Fei and Yang Zhan left, a white shadow suddenly appeared next to Lei Zhen's headless corpse. Someone actually dared to kill a disciple of my Ying Tian sect, the person said in a deep voice. A shocking, murderous aura exploded from his body. The surrounding temperature dropped rapidly. Chapter 37:16. Brother Fei, you killed Lei Zhen? Yang Zhen was still dumbfounded after returning to his residence. He was so shocked that he couldn't even speak properly. That scene just now almost made him pee his pants. Gu Fei quietly released his divine sense and instantly enveloped the entire lower courtyard of Yingtian Courtyard. So be it. Is there a problem? Gu Fei said calmly. He had merely killed an immortal-level little fellow. To him, it was as easy as crushing an ant. He needed a place to settle down in the ancestral realm. Unfortunately, he had his eyes on Yingtian's sect. Ancestor Yingtian was a quasi-supreme. Only by knowing where he was could he kill him and replace him to successfully control the entire Yingtian sect. Gu Fei actually enjoyed all of this. It reminded him of his experience in the Taishan sect in the human world before he achieved the Tao. This made Gu Fei feel like he was going back in time. What do we do? What do we do? If someone finds out, we'll die without a burial place. Yang Zhan was truly frightened. Gu Fei glanced at him and said calmly, "What are you panicking about? Didn't I just kill an immortal? It's not the end of the world. So what if it is?" He didn't care at all. But now, Gu Fei still had to endure. The ancestral realm was the origin of myriad realms. The laws of heaven and earth were perfect to the extreme. The myriad realms couldn't compare to the ancestral realm. This was the most ideal place to undergo a tribulation, especially an extreme, heavenly tribulation. If Gu Fei could successfully break through to the extreme realm here and become an extreme supreme, he would definitely be much stronger than the other supreme realms. However, there was no heavenly punishment here. There were supremes in the ancestral realm, and quite a few of them. Even Gu Fei didn't dare to be too aggressive. If he was targeted by an extreme supreme, the consequences would be unthinkable. Gu Fei had offended many extreme supremes in the ancestral realm. The moment he showed himself, he would probably be discovered by these enemies, and then it would be a tragedy. An immortal! Brother Fei, you killed an immortal, and it was Leijin. Yang Zhan was still restless and terrified. Wait, Brother Fei, if you can kill an immortal, doesn't that mean you're even stronger than an immortal? Yang Zhan suddenly looked at Gu Fei as if he was looking at a monster. Although Gu Fei had a confrontation with the Immortal City Lord in Yuntian City, he didn't do much, so no one knew how strong he was. However, even the Golden Immortal City Lord was respectful towards Gu Fei. This meant that Gu Fei was even stronger than a Golden Immortal. All right, if I say it's fine, then it's fine. No one will come looking for trouble with you. If it weren't for me just now, you would have been killed by Leijin. After saying that, Gu Fei sat cross-legged on the bed and closed his eyes, ignoring Yang Zhan. Yang Zhan didn't sleep at all. He spent the entire night in fear. However, just as Gu Fei had said, no one came to trouble him. Yang Zhan didn't know that the Primogenitor mountainside courtyard was in an uproar that night. Someone had snuck into the lower courtyard and killed an immortal true disciple. How could this be? Even the courtyard lord was alarmed. That night, all the elders of the side courtyard were mobilized in an attempt to find the intruder. However, their efforts were in vain. The intruder didn't leave behind any traces after killing the disciple. For the 1,208 young cultivators who had just passed the entrance trial, they could not sense what was happening outside at all. Only Gu Fei could sense all of this. The hall master of the Primogenitor Mountain Monastery was only a saint king. Even if Gu Fei sealed his cultivation, the hall master wouldn't be able to sense his existence. The courtyard lord personally watched over the side courtyard's divine mountain. When it was almost daybreak, all the elders who had gone out to chase the enemy returned to the main hall at the top of the mountain. The courtyard lord sat on his throne, looking down at the 12 elders below. "Courtyard lord, we didn't find anything." A white-haired, white-clothed old man, who was the leader of the 12 elders, said to the dean on the throne. "What?" The courtyard lord was shocked. How was this possible? Who could sneak into the side courtyard and kill a disciple of the Yingtian sect without anyone noticing, and then escape unscathed? Could it be that the person who killed Lei Ting is still hiding within the monastery's gates? A middle-aged elder said in a low voice, "No way." The other elders in the main hall were shocked. If that was really the case, then the murderer was too bold. Activate the formation and seal off the side courtyard. The courtyard lord said, "Yes." The 12 elders hurriedly accepted the order and left the main hall. Very soon, an extremely powerful force of the immortal Tao erupted from the peak of the Upper Academy Divine Mountain, instantly enveloping a radius of several thousand kilometers. In the void, a layer of immortal light was faintly discernible. However, after a while, the layer of immortal light disappeared into the void, as if it had never been there. They actually activated the Guardian Array? Is there a need for such a grand formation? Gu Fei was sitting on the bed in his residence. He was speechless when he sensed all this. Didn't they just kill an immortal? This was something that Gu Fei would never have thought, that the entire courtyard of Yingtian sect would be in a state of panic. Why do I care so much? Gu Fei didn't care. He still sat on his bed, unmoving. Dong! The melodious sound of a bell rang in the morning, spreading throughout the Yingtian sect. At this time, a disciple in green from the Yingtian sect shouted from outside. "Come out, all of you. What are you so slow for? Hurry up." The disciples in green were arrogant, but the young cultivators who had just passed the trial didn't dare say anything. They didn't dare offend these disciples. In the Yingtian sect, the disciples of the Yingtian sect were clearly divided. The disciples in green were of the lowest status. To put it nicely, they were disciples, but to put it bluntly, they were servants. Above the disciples in green were the true disciples, the elders' disciples, and above the elders' disciples were the courtyard lord's disciples. Of course, it had been many years since the hall master had accepted a disciple. Within the Yingtian monastery, the hall master had very few personal disciples. There were only 7, but those 7 were incomparably powerful. The eldest disciple's cultivation base could even contend against some of the elders. Hurry up and come out. Eat and drink to your heart's content. Then gather at the plaza. The disciples in green kept shouting. Gu Fei's mind moved, and the scene outside immediately reflected in his mind. He saw a dozen disciples in green pushing huge wooden buckets outside, shouting. These buckets were pushed by wooden carts, and inside were buns and porridge. The buns were red, and the porridge was dark green. What surprised Gu Fei was that these buns and green porridge were imbued with spiritual energy. Although the spiritual energy was very weak for cultivators, eating these things often could slowly change their physique. At this time, many cultivators came out, and some were already wolfing down the food. Chapter 37:17. Genius 1 second, remember if you want to go? Sure, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. In Tianzong's food was pretty good. Even the food for the trial takers contained spiritual energy. The ancestral realm was worthy of its name. If this was the mortal world, perhaps only the core disciples of the great sects and great clans could enjoy this kind of food. The primogenitor realm's spiritual energy was the densest out of all the places Gu Fei had ever seen. Even if the people here didn't cultivate, they could still live up to 100 or 200 years old. The lifespan of cultivators was very long. It should be known that under the nourishment of spiritual energy, even a blade of grass could transform into a spiritual medicine. Soon, everyone was full, and then they walked towards the square. Gu Fei and Yang Zhan also arrived at the square. In the center of the square, there was actually a 3-zhang tall platform, and above the square, there was a cloud of qi. On top of the clouds sat 12 immortals in purple feather robes. These immortals were high up in the sky, surrounded by immortal light as if they had merged with the great Tao of heaven and earth. They were the 12th elder of the Yingtian courtyard. Even though the 12th elder was just sitting on the cloud and did not exude any immortal might, everyone was still very cautious in front of him, not daring to be careless. At this time, the challengers in the plaza were already stunned by the immortal atmosphere of Yingtian courtyard. The trial takers were all ordinary people, and the highest cultivation level among them was only a half-step immortal. When had they ever seen such a scene? At this moment, a figure directly leaped down from the divine mountain high up in the sky. He stepped on a rainbow-colored immortal cloud and landed on the high platform at the center of the square. "Greetings, eldest senior brother." All the white-robed disciples in the square bowed towards the figure on the high platform. "Love, go, small, say, Netkuiven the 12th elder, who was squatting on the cloud, stood up. Junior brothers, there's no need to be so polite." The young, white-robed immortal on the high platform said with a smile. The cultivators in the square were dumbfounded. "New junior brothers and sisters, I am your eldest senior brother, Shangguan Feixiong. Next will be your second trial. More accurately, it will be an arena competition. In this competition, the top 12 will be able to become an elder's disciple. Below the top 12, but above the top 200 will be able to become a true disciple. However, I have a piece of bad news for you. Among the green-robed disciples in the monastery, all disciples below the immortal god realm can participate in the competition." Shangguan Feixiong said. "What?" As soon as Shangguan Feixiong's words fell, the trial takers in the plaza went into an uproar. "Eldest senior brother, this is very unfair to us." Someone shouted at Shangguan Feixiong. "That's right. Those green-robed senior brothers have been cultivating in this sect for so long. How could we possibly be their match?" A fat cultivator said. Shangguan Feixiong was still smiling as he looked at the trial takers below the stage. "As long as you guys are outstanding enough, even those green-robed junior brothers who entered the sect earlier than you won't be your match. Unless you're not stunning enough." Shangguan Feixiong continued. Everyone was speechless. "All right, now let's talk about the rules of the competition." Shangguan Feixiong intentionally paused for a moment. Everyone's ears pricked up. "What I want to say is, the rules of the competition are that there are no rules. You will fight until you can no longer fight. Not only will you win, but you will also die. This will also give you a chance to settle your grudges." As Shangguan Feixiong spoke, his expression gradually became solemn. In the cultivation world, the strong preyed on the weak. Although Ying Tian sect's method of selecting disciples was cruel, it was also the most effective. Everyone was listening quietly. "All right, I hereby announce the start of the competition." After saying that, Shangguan Feixiong soared into the sky and arrived in front of the 12th elder. He bowed to the 12th elder and sat down below him. This Shangguan Feixiong was the eldest disciple of the Hall Master, and also the eldest senior brother of Ying Tian courtyard. His cultivation and battle prowess were comparable to some of the 12 elders. At this moment, everyone below the stage stared at each other, and no one went up. One must know that this was a duel of life and death without any rules. The loser would either be injured or die. "Haha, a bunch of cowards. If you don't go up, then I will." Right at this moment, a burst of laughter resounded, and then waves of tremors came from the ground as a figure the size of a small mountain charged towards the arena. After that, it leaped up and descended onto the arena with a bang, causing the entire arena to shake violently. Everyone was dumbfounded. They saw that the guy who jumped onto the stage was actually a big fatty dressed in green clothes. "Isn't this the fatty who cooks in the workshop?" A disciple in green recognized the fatty. "It's this fatty. He can really eat. He seems to have put on a lot of weight." Someone ridiculed. "Even the people from the workshop are here to participate in the written test." Many people were surprised. "A bunch of cowards. Do you dare to spar with me?" The fatty glanced at the crowd below the stage and said disdainfully. As soon as the fatty finished speaking, a figure rushed onto the stage. It was a young disciple who was participating in the written test. Yang Zhan happened to know him. He was a disciple of the Thunder Clan. Come. If you have any skills, then use them. Otherwise, you won't have a chance." Fatty waved his hand at the man and said, "Humph." The disciple from the Thunder Clan moved and immediately disappeared. In the next moment, his figure appeared above the fatty's head, and his foot stomped down on the fatty's head. This was a secret technique of the Thunder Clan called lightning force. This secret technique could instantly increase a person's speed to the limit, allowing them to burst out with the fastest speed possible. The fatty suddenly grinned. His right hand reached up and grabbed the sole of the Thunder Clan disciple's foot. What? The Thunder Clan disciple was shocked. His left foot also came down on the fatty's head. However, what caused the disciple to collapse was that his left foot was also caught by the fatty. In the next moment, the fatty swung the Thunder Clan disciple around and ruthlessly smashed him onto the stage. With just one smash, the Thunder Clan disciple spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. TCH, a piece of trash. Fatty threw the disciple of the Thunder Clan out of the arena as if he was a ragged sack. Although the fatty didn't kill anyone, the Thunder Clan disciple was already half dead. He would need to recuperate for a period of time before he could recover. Who else is there? Come up here for me. Don't be afraid. I won't beat you to death. The fatty said to the crowd below the stage. The crowd was incomparably shocked. The combat strength displayed by the fatty was too strong. It was definitely above the Xiantian realm. Who would dare to challenge this guy? How could they live? Chapter 37:18. Genius 1, 2nd, remember love, go away, to provide you with wonderful novels to read. Many people were frightened by the fact that there were no rules to the battle. Victory and defeat were decided, and life and death were also decided. In other words, there would be people who would die. More than 1,000 cultivators had passed the trial with great difficulty. Who would want to go up and die? However, many people were unwilling. If they didn't go up and display their amazing cultivation and talent, they wouldn't be able to attract the attention of the 12 elders. If they wanted to become an elder disciple of the Primogenitum Mountain Courtyard, one of the 36 courtyards, they had to go up to the arena. However, the most terrible thing was that the green-robed disciples of the Yingtian courtyard were also qualified to go up to the arena. This made this batch of cultivators feel that it was very unfair. 10 years was a very long time for mortals. Those green-robed disciples of the Yingtian courtyard had cultivated for 10 years. Even if they weren't immortals, they were almost there. Who would dare to say that they could win against these green-robed disciples? What, are you all cowards? If you're not a coward, then come up here. At this time, the fatty on the arena shouted to everyone below the stage. Too arrogant. This batch of cultivators were very unhappy. They wished they could throw that fat pig off the arena. However, they had learned their lesson. That unlucky guy from the Thunder Clan was still unconscious. Yang Zhan was also very angry seeing the scene. What? You want to go up and teach that guy a lesson? Gu Fei crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked at the fatty on the arena. Although this fatty looked very strong, he was only at the mid-level Xiantian realm. However, this fatty's fat was very shocking. His ability to resist attacks was absolutely amazing. An ordinary Xiantian cultivator would find it difficult to win against this guy unless they used a weapon. However, not everyone could have a spiritual weapon. Yang Zhan had a spiritual weapon. Wang Long also had one. Ling Feng was crippled and had been eliminated. It was hard to say whether he could return to his clan or not. This batch of disciples doesn't seem to be very good. A purple-robed elder, sitting high above the clouds, shook his head and said, "It's still too early to say that." The great elder said indifferently, "Senior brother is right." The elder hurriedly said, "The monastery's 12 elders would accept disciples once every 10 years. But only the top 12 disciples from the unruly competition would have a chance to become an elder's disciple. It was just a chance. If the 12 elders didn't like the 12 disciples who won, they could choose not to accept disciples. So, whether or not they accepted disciples depended on the mood of the 12 elders. The great elder had the fewest disciples. He only had 9, 2 more than the hall master. and the one with the most disciples was the 12 elders, with a total of 32 disciples. Love, Gope, Small, say, Netka having many disciples was useless, as the hall master only had 7 disciples. On the other hand, Shangguan Feixiong alone was enough to sweep through all of the elders' disciples. At this time, the eldest senior brother, Shangguan Feixiong, who was sitting right below the 12th elder, looked at the new disciples on the square with a smile on his face. There were still a few good seedlings among this batch of new disciples. "I'll fight you." Just at this moment, a loud shout rang out from the square. A figure soared into the sky and landed on the martial stage. He then walked over to the fatty. This was a cultivator who looked like a 7 or 8-year-old child. But none of the cultivators on the square dared to look down on him. That was because this childlike cultivator had an incomparably domineering nickname, Little Overlord. He actually couldn't control his temper. Gu Fei couldn't help feeling a bit surprised when he saw that person. Was Feng Yu impulsive? That shouldn't be the case. That fellow had people in the Ying Tian Monastery. Back when he had first entered the Ying Tian Monastery, Gu Fei had sensed that Feng Yu was together with a Saint King. That Saint King was currently sitting on a cloud in the sky. The Wind Clan's foundation was truly deep. Of course, Gu Fei didn't place the Wind Clan in his eyes. Hee, little fellow, I think you should go down. Otherwise, if I accidentally beat you to death, that wouldn't be good. The fatty grinned. Feng Yu revealed a trace of disdain when he heard that. With just you? You want to beat me to death? Come and try. Feng Yu waved his hand at the fatty with a disapproving expression. You're courting death. Feng Yu's disdainful gaze deeply hurt the fatty. Both of the fatty's legs pushed against the ground, causing the entire martial stage to shake. In the next moment, his entire body leaped up from the ground like a huge ball and directly smashed towards Feng Yu. No way. Seeing this scene, everyone below the martial stage was indescribably shocked. This fatty's attack was truly too strange. Could it be that he wanted to use his huge body to smash Feng Yu to death? Feng Yu stared at the fatty, who was smashing down from the sky. The corner of his mouth suddenly revealed a trace of a cold smile. In the next moment, his hands danced and transparent wind blades immediately rushed out from his hands. Although the wind blades were invisible when they moved quickly in the void, they emitted a faint sound of breaking through the air. This is, as the saying goes, once an expert makes a move, one will know whether or not he is an expert. Feng Yu's move immediately shocked the fatty. The fatty's clothes were instantly cut by the wind blades. When the wind blades landed on the fatty's body, it was as if they were chopping cotton. All of the wind blades were bounced off, unable to harm him at all. In the next moment, Feng Yu disappeared on the spot like a gust of wind, without a trace. Boom! The fatty directly smashed into the martial stage, causing the entire martial stage to shake. If it wasn't for the immortal force supporting it, this martial stage would have collapsed. Storm Fist. Feng Yu's figure appeared in the sky above the fatty. In the next moment, countless fists rained down on the fatty like a violent storm. Come on. The fatty laughed heartily. In the next moment, countless fists instantly smashed onto the fatty's body. Fist marks immediately appeared on the fatty's body, and these fist marks directly sank into the fatty's body. However, in the next moment, these fist marks disappeared and the collapsed fatty's body bounced back. Countless violent fists smashed onto the fatty's body, but it actually felt like they were scratching an itch. Seeing this scene, everyone below the stage was indescribably shocked. This fatty is abnormal. Little fella, did you not drink your milk? Go back and drink your milk before coming back. As the fatty spoke loudly, he directly stretched out his hand and grabbed towards Feng Yu. Wind tornado. Feng Yu's body swayed, and an extremely strong gust of wind immediately gushed out from his body, forming a whirlpool that enveloped the fatty. The strong wind formed a tornado, and the fatty's cumbersome body actually staggered because of the wind. In the next moment, the wind suddenly increased, and the fatty was directly swept up into the sky. Chapter 30, 719. Genius in a second, remember love, go away. The internet provides you with exciting novels to read. Feng Yu made his move. The combat techniques of the Feng clan were incomparably strong. A huge tornado appeared on the arena, sending the fatty flying into the air. There was no suspense in this battle. One should know that Feng Yu was an expert who had surpassed the inborn realm. In the next moment, the fatty's huge body flew out like a huge meatball. He landed on the ground and bounced a few times before standing firmly on the ground. What a meatball! Everyone in the square was secretly astonished when they saw this. The people who came out of the workshop were really extraordinary. At this time, the fatty stared at the figure on the arena. He was unwilling, but more than that, he felt helpless. He couldn't even defeat a kid. He had lived all these years in vain. Junior brother fatty, you'd better stay in the workshop obediently. There's good food and a good place to live. We're all very envious of you. Ha! Someone mocked the fatty. Lin Xian, if you're capable, come up the arena. If you're not, then don't squabble here. The fatty stared at the disciple in green who mocked him and said angrily, Humph, I'll go up then. So what? The disciple in green said as he leaped up and landed on the arena. Little brat, it's not too late for you to jump off the arena now. If I make a move, you'll be in deep trouble. The disciple in green, named Lin Xian, smiled evilly and stared at Feng Yu. Feng Yu smiled and didn't say a word. However, he stretched out his hand and hooked his finger at the disciple in green. Since that's the case, don't blame me for being ruthless. Lin Xian said coldly. In the next moment, he moved, leaving an afterimage on the spot. In an instant, he appeared in front of Feng Yu and threw a punch at Feng Yu's face. So fast! The spectators below the arena were shocked. The moment Lin Xian punched out, there was a loud, piercing sound in the air. The speed and strength of his physical body had broken through the limits of the post-celestial stage and even the post-celestial stage. An expert who has surpassed the inborn realm. Below the arena, Yang Zhan's eyes narrowed when he saw this. Looks like you'd better not go up. Gu Fei said. Among the green-robed disciples of Ing Tian courtyard, there were many who were stronger than Yang Zhan. Some of these green-robed disciples even had 1 foot in the immortal god realm. Given Yang Zhan's current cultivation base, it was impossible for him to defeat these half-step immortals unless he helped him. I can't accept it. Yang Zhan clenched his fists as he stared at the 2 rapidly moving figures on the stage. Feng Yu and Lin Xian began to fight on the stage. Powerful qi exploded on the stage, and dense sounds of collisions kept ringing out. Powerful energy ripples spread out, creating a strong wind around the stage. Third brother, your Feng clan has produced a good seedling. A white-bearded elder, sitting high above the clouds, said to a white-haired elder beside him, Feng Yu is a good kid. The old man said proudly. Shangguan Feixiong, who was sitting beside the 12th elder, smiled and did not say anything. The 3rd elder, Feng Feiyang, had a powerful cultivation and was a Saint King. In the past 60 years, the Feng clan had not produced any outstanding figures. This made Feng Feiyang lose face, but the appearance of Feng Yu was a pleasant surprise. Congratulations, 3rd elder. The other elders said with a smile. In their opinion, since the 3rd elder was going to accept this disciple as an elder's disciple, the other elders were too embarrassed to compete with him. In the eyes of these elders, this batch of new disciples wasn't very good, but there were still a few good seedlings that were worth nurturing. The once-in-a-century Ing Tian sect's 36 monastery competition was not far away. Among the true disciples and elders' disciples, only 1 or 2 would be able to hold the fort. At this time, the outcome of the battle between the 2 experts on the stage had been decided. Lin Xian was sent flying by Feng Yu's palm and fell off the stage. He staggered a few steps and forcefully swallowed the blood that had welled up in his throat. Without saying a word, he turned and left. Feng Yu looked at Lin Xian's back. Although he had defeated Lin Xian, his state of mind was very calm. He was neither happy nor sad, maintaining his peak state. Well done! The new disciples below the stage were all cheering for Feng Yu on the stage. Third Elder Feng Feiyan, who was sitting on a cloud, smiled as he looked at Feng Yu on the stage. He nodded, very satisfied with Feng Yu's performance. Let me! At this time a loud shout rang out. Everyone hurriedly looked in the direction of the voice, only to see a tall and mighty disciple in green robes walking over like a fierce beast. Why is he here? Someone exclaimed. Isn't he already qualified to become a true disciple? Why is he here to fight? Those who knew this burly man looked at him in disbelief. Gu Fei's eyes lit up when he saw this man. This guy was definitely over 2 meters tall, and his muscles were well developed. His arms revealed his bronze skin. This burly man gave off a feeling of power. Zhao Tianlong, why are you here? At this time, a voice came from the sky. Eldest senior brother Gu Fei glanced at third elder Feng Feiyan before standing up. At this time, Gu Fei also learned about the background of this burly man from the conversation of the green-robed disciples. This burly man's name was Zhao Tianlong. He was originally the son of an ordinary hunter, but by chance he obtained a body-tempering technique. Not only did he build a body of muscles, but he also cultivated true energy from the outside to the inside. He became an inborn expert and was qualified to participate in the entrance trial of Yingtian sect. 10 years ago, he relied on a pair of iron fists to fight his way out of the trial. 10 years later, he was already a half-step immortal with a great mastery of the body-tempering technique. His body was strong enough to withstand the attack of a spiritual weapon, and he could destroy a small mountain with a single punch. Even the beasts in the Primogenita mountain that were known for their strength weren't a match for him. Someone saw Zhao Tianlong tear a tiger-elephant beast into 2 with their own eyes. At this time, third elder Feng Feiyan, who was sitting on the cloud, couldn't help but frown when he saw Zhao Tianlong. Zhao Tianlong was a lunatic. His body was extremely strong, and so was his strength. An ordinary half-step immortal was no match for him. If Feng Yu was killed by Zhao Tianlong, it would be a great loss to the Feng clan. When Zhao Tianlong was still a few dozen meters away from the arena, he stomped his right foot on the ground. With a bang, his entire body soared up into the sky and landed on the arena. Half-step immortal. Feng Yu stared at Zhao Tianlong, his pupils constricting. In the next moment, rays of spiritual light rushed out from his body and flew back to his body. Soon, a golden vest appeared on Feng Yu's body. Swoosh! A pair of golden wings spread out from Feng Yu's back. This was a secret treasure of the Feng family. It was called the Wings of Wind God, a spiritual weapon. With the Wings of Wind God, Feng Yu's confidence was boosted. He was confident that he could even fight against a half-step immortal god. Chapter 3720. Genius in a second. Remember love, go divided by small? Talk Net, providing you with exciting novels to read. He's a body cultivator. Gu Fei looked at Zhao Tianlong in the arena and couldn't help but feel surprised. This was the first time he had seen a pure body cultivator in the ancestral realm. Love, go small, talk, net, of course, the ancestral realm was huge, with thousands of clans and all kinds of cultivation systems. The great figures of the ancestral realm controlled countless middle-grade and high-grade realms, absorbing the strengths of the realms to strengthen themselves. They smelted the Daos and achieved a metamorphosis, becoming an existence that surpassed the extreme Tao. This was the ambition of the big shots of the ancestral realm. However, since ancient times, even in the ancestral realm, no one had been able to transcend the extreme Tao and become an existence that stood above the Daos in the heavens. At this moment, Feng Yu and Zhao Tianlong had already started fighting on the arena. This battle was much more intense than the battle between Feng Yu and Lin Xian. Feng Yu's wings of wind were indeed powerful, increasing his speed by more than one-fold. To Feng Yu, speed was power. Swoosh! Feng Yu was like a golden divine eagle, circling above the arena. Rays of golden light constantly shot out from his wings of the wind god. Those were extremely sharp sword lights. The power contained within each sword ray was enough to kill an ordinary void-controlling realm expert. Even a demigod would not dare to face the sword rays head-on. However, Zhao Tianlong was completely unafraid of the incoming streaks of sword light. His fists continued to smash out, shattering the streaks of sword light one after another. Akin to a purplish gold god of war, he appeared extremely valiant. Zhao Tianlong displayed the body refinement technique that he cultivated. His entire skin turned purplish gold, as if he had turned into a piece of godly metal. At the moment when his fist collided with the golden sword light that was slashing down, a clanging sound that could only be heard when gold and iron collided. Is this guy really made of metal? All the spectators below the arena were indescribably shocked. Zhao Tianlong was like a ferocious beast cast from godly metal. There were no flaws on his body. Zhao Tianlong's strength seems to have increased by quite a bit again. Shangguan Feixiong, who was watching the scene from the sky, could not help but nod his head. It's a pity that the body tempering technique that he's cultivating isn't good enough. I'm afraid that he'll never be able to break through to the immortal god realm in this lifetime. Third Elder Feng Fiang said indifferently. He was a saint king, so he could see the problem with Zhao Tianlong's body at a glance. Although Zhao Tianlong appeared to be incomparably powerful on the surface, with the strength of his fleshly body reaching the level of being able to go head-on against a spiritual artifact, the body tempering technique that he cultivated and had a huge flaw. Zhao Tianlong had already reached the limit of what his body could endure by cultivating this body tempering technique to such a degree, causing the hidden injuries on his body to become increasingly serious. Once the hidden dangers in Zhao Tianlong's body flared up, there would be no need for anyone to do anything for him to lose his life. It's a pity that our sect doesn't have any body cultivation techniques. Otherwise, Zhao Tianlong wouldn't have no hope of becoming an immortal. The first elder suddenly sighed. The other elders could not help but nod their heads upon hearing this. The grand elder was the elder with the highest cultivation amongst them. Since he had said such words, Zhao Tianlong was naturally sentenced to death. The small cultivators in the public square were naturally unable to hear the discussions of the big shots high up in the clouds. However, it was different for Gu Fei. The evaluation of Zhao Tianlong by the elders of Yingtian's side courtyard reached his ears without missing a single word. He merely smiled in response. It seemed like Zhao Tianlong was also quite a character. There was no doubt that a body cultivator was powerful. One must know that to a certain extent, Gu Fei was also a body cultivator. After all, he was a quasi-martial sovereign who had entered the path of cultivation through his martial arts. At this moment, Zhao Tianlong, who was standing on the stage, was as still as a mountain. No matter how many attacks Feng Yu unleashed, Zhao Tianlong simply threw out one punch after another, as if he was practicing his own fist technique. However, such a simple and direct fist technique had shattered all of Feng Yu's attacks. Going from complexity to simplicity, not bad. Gu Fei said indifferently as he looked at Zhao Tianlong, who was standing on the stage. Zhao Tianlong was very talented in martial arts and had a lot of battle experience. He was not a disciple of a powerful family who did not have any inheritance. He had relied on himself to carve out his own path to become an expert. One could imagine how much effort and sweat Zhao Tianlong had put in to obtain such a powerful cultivation base. Gu Fei seemed to see himself in Zhao Tianlong in the past. The outcome of the battle between Zhao Tianlong and Feng Yu had already been decided. Feng Yu had relied on the wings of Aeolus to last until now. However, activating a powerful spiritual weapon required a large amount of elemental energy. Get out of my sight! Zhao Tianlong roared and threw a punch at Feng Yu in the sky. Violent energy erupted from his fist, and a dragon's roar seemed to resound in the void. A dragon-shaped fist energy soared into the sky and pounced at Feng Yu. Fist energy materialization. What a guy! At this moment, even the eyes of the elders in the sky lit up. The battle strength displayed by Zhao Tianlong was too shocking. He was only a half-step immortal, but he already had the ability to materialize his qi. To a certain extent, materializing his qi was already considered a divine ability. Only immortals possessed divine abilities. Once one became an immortal, a divine ability would be born naturally. This was what it meant to be an immortal. The spectators below the stage were all stunned when they saw the scene on the stage. Feng Yu was shocked. He flapped his wings and soared into the sky. However, the momentum of the dragon-shaped fist energy was extremely ferocious and fast. It caught up with Feng Yu in an instant and blasted him high into the sky. Feng Yu felt as if he had been hit by a huge mountain. He spat out a mouthful of blood as if he was going to fall apart. He fell from the sky like a kite with a broken string. At this moment, the third elder, Feng Feiyang, who was sitting on the clouds in the sky, saw this scene and his face instantly turned gloomy. Shangguan Feixiong glanced at Feng Feiyang and couldn't help but pray for Zhao Tianlong in his heart. Zhao Tianlong had offended the third elder. At this moment, a white-robed disciple from Yingtian's sect soared into the sky and wrapped his arms around Feng Yu. He took a deep look at Zhao Tianlong on the stage before turning around and leaving the square with Feng Yu in his arms. Feng Yu had actually been knocked unconscious by Zhao Tianlong's punch. At this moment, even the white-robed disciples of Yingtian's sect looked at Zhao Tianlong differently. "Come on, defeat me, but I'm asking for a defeat." Zhao Tianlong stood on the stage and swept his domineering gaze across the cultivators below the stage. Most of them didn't dare to make eye contact with Zhao Tianlong. However, there were a few who weren't afraid of Zhao Tianlong. They directly met Zhao Tianlong's gaze with blazing battle intent. "Do you want to go up and show off your might?" Gu Fei suddenly asked Yang Zhan, who was beside him. "What?" Yang Zhan was startled when he heard this, but he was pleasantly surprised. Chapter 37:21. Zhao Tianlong had defeated Feng Yu. The battle prowess he had displayed in this battle had stunned the spectators in the public square. Even the white-robed direct disciples from the Yingtian sect were indescribably shocked. Fist energy transforming into a dragon. This could already be considered a type of divine ability. This was a battle technique divine ability that was extremely powerful. With just one punch, Feng Yu was already out of luck. Even the wings of the wind god couldn't protect him. For a moment, no one below the stage dared to step forward. However, this was only temporary, because there were still a few cultivators in the public square who could compete with Zhao Tianlong. "Zhao Tianlong, I'll fight you." A figure directly walked out from the crowd. It was a green-robed disciple. He was short, skinny, and had tan skin. His arms were so long that they were almost touching the ground. At first glance, this green-robed disciple was simply an ape. Mad Monkey Duyuan. When the green-robed disciples saw the monkey-like green-robed disciple, some of them immediately exclaimed. This Duyuan was also a ruthless character. Among the green-robed disciples, only he dared to compete with Zhao Tianlong. Furthermore, his cultivation and battle prowess were definitely not weaker than Zhao Tianlong's. The mad monkey, Du Yuan, leapt up from the ground and landed on the stage. Then he walked step by step to stand opposite Zhao Tianlong. "I really admire your courage." Zhao Tianlong stared at the mad monkey Du Yuan and said coldly, "Humph." Du Yuan sneered and said, "Cut the crap. Make your move." "As you wish," Zhao Tianlong said as he took a step forward. In an instant, he appeared in front of Du Yuan and fiercely smashed his fist towards Du Yuan's head. "So fast." Du Yuan was taken aback. He moved his feet, leaving behind an afterimage on his original spot. His real body had already appeared on Zhao Tianlong's left side in an instant. His hand directly chopped towards Zhao Tianlong's neck. Swish! An air-piercing sound rang out. It was as if a real sharp blade had cut through the void. The power of Du Yuan's hand chop could not be underestimated. In the eyes of the immortals, a battle between cultivators below the immortal realm was simply not worth watching. In fact, the 12th elder had only come out to support the situation. When they encountered a good seedling, these elders would naturally accept them into their sect. However, this batch of disciples didn't seem to be very good, which made the 12th elder even more disinterested. Kill! Zhao Tianlong's furious roar was akin to a sudden clap of thunder, causing the ears of the spectators in the square to ring. Completely ignoring Du Yuan's hand chop, he exhaled and sent a fist smashing towards Du Yuan's chest. This punch caused the clothes on Zhao Tianlong's body to swell up, while his long hair fluttered about in a disorderly manner. Those who were a little timid would have been scared out of their wits by his roar. A dragon-shaped fist force rushed out from Zhao Tianlong's fist. The violent power contained within it was even stronger and more ferocious than when he had sent Feng Yu flying. This guy was holding back just now. Everyone below the arena was shocked. Du Yuan did not dare to face Zhao Tianlong head-on. Like a nimble monkey, he shrunk his body, instantly evading Zhao Tianlong's dragon-shaped fist force, before sending his hand straight toward Zhao Tianlong's face. He was very clear about Zhao Tianlong's weaknesses. Zhao Tianlong's entire body only had his eyes, mouth, and the anus as his weak points. However, those 3 spots on Zhao Tianlong's body weren't so easy to hit. Zhao Tianlong closed his eyes before sending his hands out to grab Du Yuan. As long as he managed to grab Du Yuan would be finished. Seemingly knowing that Zhao Tianlong would use this move, Du Yuan's body sunk before suddenly crouching on the ground. His right index and middle fingers came together before stabbing towards Zhao Tianlong's anus. This guy actually wanted to break his anus. "You're courting death!" Zhao Tianlong roared furiously as he used his 2 forks to twist and break Du Yuan's arms. Du Yuan hastily retracted his hands. Zhao Tianlong's body was as hard as steel and as strong as a dragon. Being touched by any part of his body would be disastrous. Du Yuan was extremely slippery as he immediately rolled to the side. "Do you only know these despicable moves?" Zhao Tianlong stared at Du Yuan, who had stood up from the ground, as he spoke out in disdain. He did not give chase. Du Yuan had even used a move like gouging his eyes and inserting his anus, completely infuriating Zhao Tianlong. "Why do you care what move I use? It's fine as long as I can defeat you," Du Yuan said disapprovingly. In order to achieve his goals, he would do anything. Hearing this, Zhao Tianlong felt even more disdain. Ambitious and ruthless. Gu Fei uttered these 2 words as he looked at Du Yuan on the stage. If Du Yuan was able to mature, he would definitely become a formidable and ruthless character. At this moment, the 2 demigod rank powerhouses on the stage started fighting once again. In the end, Du Yuan was unable to break Zhao Tianlong's anus and was thrown off the stage by Zhao Tianlong. One of his arms was crippled, turning him into a one-armed crazy monkey. As Gu Fei looked at the awe-inspiring Zhao Tianlong on the stage, a strange smile suddenly appeared on his face as he sent a hand seal into Yang Zhan's body. In the next instant, an extremely powerful energy fluctuation erupted from Yang Zhan's body. "What's going on?" Yang Zhan jumped in fright. "Junior brother, do you want to fight me? Come on up then." Zhao Tianlong's voice rang out from the stage. Yang Zhan raised his head and saw Zhao Tianlong glaring at him like a ferocious beast, as if Yang Zhan was his prey. This caused Yang Zhan's heart to palpitate. This guy is really something. He actually dared to challenge Zhao Tianlong. "Brother, I'm impressed." "Brother, don't be a coward." "Brother, it's all up to you now. Fight for the pride of our new batch of disciples. Brother, we support you. The surrounding crowd cheered. Support your ass. Yang Zhan was on the verge of tears. How could he possibly be a match for Zhao Tianlong? Brother Fei, you can't play with people like this. There's actually a new disciple who wants to challenge Zhao Tianlong. Even the elders in the sky were surprised. So that's the case. A peak demigod rank indeed has the qualifications to challenge Zhao Tianlong. In the next instant, the elders understood. They were able to see through Yang Zhan's cultivation with a single glance. To think that such a fellow was hiding among the new disciples. The eyes of the elders lit up as they looked at Yang Zhan. He's a good seedling. Don't fight with me. The second elder, who had been silent all this while, shouted at the other elders. A disciple like Zhao Tianlong could become an immortal with just a little guidance. In the eyes of the elders, he was naturally a good seedling. The other elders even had the thought of accepting him as a disciple. However, they would never have guessed that Yang Zhan's cultivation was only temporarily raised by Gu Fei. Chapter 37:22. Brother Fei, Yang Zhan was dumbfounded. He didn't want to go up the stage and fight against the ferocious beast Zhao Tianlong. This Zhao Tianlong was simply too strong. His body was as tough as steel, and even spiritual weapons couldn't injure him. Brother, don't be a coward. Go. Right. Let these senior brothers witness our might. Go, 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 the surrounding new disciples began to cheer. Soon, all the new disciples in the plaza were shouting in unison, their voices echoing throughout the plaza. These fellows! The big senior brother of the Yingtian courtyard frowned when he saw this scene. He glanced at the 12 elders, who seemed to have turned a blind eye to this scene. These elders were all thinking about how to recruit Yang Zhan. They were also very curious about who was stronger between the two. Just go up and have some fun. Gu Fei looked at Yang Zhan with a smile. But Yang Zhan bitterly looked at Zhao Tianlong on the stage. Although Brother Fei had increased his cultivation and combat strength, how could he be Zhao Tianlong's opponent? This fellow had just defeated Feng Yu. Go on, it's fine. Gu Fei patted Yang Zhan's shoulder in consolation. Brother Fei, you have to watch me. Yang Zhan had no choice but to brace himself and go up. Good, brother, you've got guts. The surrounding fellows, who wished to see the world in chaos, cheered again. Brother, I admire you. If you die, I'll collect your corpse. Someone shouted at Yang Zhan. Fuck! How about this daddy collect your corpse? Yang Zhan angrily shouted at the fellow. If you want to fight, then fight. Stop being so wishy-washy like a girl. At this moment, Zhao Tianlong's incomparably tyrannical voice resounded from the stage. He was already somewhat impatient. I'm coming, I'm coming. What's the rush? Yang Zhan said as he stomped on the ground with his right foot. His entire body soared into the sky and landed on the stage. Facing Zhao Tianlong's sharp gaze, Yang Zhan's heart palpitated. Humph, you dare to come up like this? What kind of person was Zhao Tianlong? Yang Zhan's subtle expressions were all seen by him. Such a coward actually had the guts to step onto the stage. What did you say? Upon hearing Zhao Tianlong's words, Yang Zhan abruptly raised his head and stared at Zhao Tianlong. His eyes were as bright as the stars in the sky as a powerful aura surged out from his body. In that instant, Yang Zhan seemed to have become another person. Zhao Tianlong could not help but gawk when he sensed the changes in Yang Zhan's body. Could this fellow be pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger? A fellow who could cultivate to the demigod realm was definitely not a coward. Zhao Tianlong immediately retracted his contempt. You've angered me. The consequences will be dire. Yang Zhan glared at Zhao Tianlong as an ominous glint flickered in his eyes. This fellow actually dared to look down on him? This daddy even dared to contend against the beast sovereign back in the training grounds. Who the hell do you think you are? Is that so? So what? Zhao Tianlong said proudly. He was very confident that who below the immortal god realm could be his match? Zhao Tianlong, cultivated in the 9 heavens tyrant body technique. His fleshly body had been tempered to the point where he could block the attack of a spirit artifact with his bare hands. Among the demigods, Zhao Tianlong was confident that no one's fleshly body could be stronger than his. However, the 9 heavens tyrant body technique that Zhao Tianlong had obtained was not a complete cultivation technique. It was merely a fragment. Otherwise, he would not have left behind such a huge hidden danger while cultivating this cultivation technique. Go to hell! Yang Zhan did not waste any more words with Zhao Tianlong. He directly sent a fist smashing towards Zhao Tianlong. This attack actually contained the power of the 5 elements. Even Yang Zhan was dumbfounded. This wasn't his battle technique. It was definitely Brother Fei's doing. Yang Zhan's guess was correct. This kind of battle was too boring for Gu Fei. He naturally wanted to find some entertainment for himself. Not only did he temporarily help Yang Zhan increase his cultivation, he also planted a strand of his will in Yang Zhan's body. Therefore, the current Yang Zhan was like Gu Fei in the demigod realm. No one present was able to see anything strange. Even the monastery master was unable to see anything. How could these saint kings, or even saint emperors, see through Gu Fei's techniques? That was the difference. Even though Gu Fei had sealed his cultivation base, the techniques he used were still not something anyone could see through. 5 elements energy? At this time, the eyes of the elders in the sky brightened. They had also misjudged. This disciple actually had a 5-element spiritual body? The Yingtian sect was an immortal cultivation sect. They paid great attention to the constitution, which was what they called a spiritual body. It was also known as an immortal root, immortal meridian, and so on. In short, these were just different names for the same thing. What Yang Zhan had used was the 5-element fist that Gu Fei had created. This kind of fist technique could draw upon the 5 elements energy of heaven and earth for one's own use. That caused all the elders in the sky to be incomparably excited. There were thousands of spiritual bodies, but those who had a 5-element spiritual body were extremely rare. At least in the Yingtian sect's Primogenita Mountain Monastery, there hadn't been a 5-element spiritual body in over 500 years. It was no wonder that the elders of the Yingtian courtyard were so excited. Second brother, I want to discuss something with you. The first elder suddenly said to the second elder, Boss, you already have Luchin. Don't compete with me. The second elder's old face immediately sank. The first elder's eldest disciple Luchin was in existence, second only to Shangguan Feixiong. Haha, good seedlings are hard to find. The third elder, Feng Feiyang, laughed. Second brother, although I have many disciples, none of them are good enough. Why don't you give this little guy to me? The 12th elder said to the second elder with a smile, I'm going to get angry if you keep acting like this. The second elder's expression immediately darkened. Second brother, why are you so serious? Isn't it just a 5-element spiritual body? The first elder said disapprovingly, Humph. The second elder was in a bad mood. Then why are you still competing with me? Boom! Right at this moment, a loud sound came from below, attracting the attention of all the elders. On the stage below, 2 fists collided. A powerful demigod strength erupted, causing the stage to shake and the 2 experts to simultaneously take 2 steps back. Yang Zhan appeared as though he was possessed. The power of the 5 elements gushed forth from his body as he continued punching towards Zhao Tianlong. A blinding fiery light erupted from his fist as the power of the fire elemental attribute erupted forth. Good. Zhao Tianlong took a step forward and also punched out. His fist turned a purplish black, as if it had turned into a piece of divine metal. Boom! Another loud sound rang out as the 2 fists collided. The 2 forces were like volcanic eruptions colliding together and spreading out in all directions. Chapter 37:23. It was as if Yang Zhan had been possessed by Gu Fei. Displaying the five-element fist, he directly clashed with Zhao Tianlong on the martial stage. At this moment, Yang Zhan had already lost control of his body. The will that Gu Fei had planted in his body had taken over his control. This was also the reason why Yang Zhan was no longer afraid. It had to be known that ever since Gu Fei had made his debut, he had been courageously advancing forward, crushing everything in his path. He had never been afraid. Right now it was as if Gu Fei was exchanging blows with Zhao Tianlong. How is this possible? Zhao Tianlong was incomparably shocked. His opponent's fist was imbued with a powerful fire element fist energy, causing him to involuntarily take 3 steps back. There's nothing impossible about it, Yang Zhan calmly said. A powerful aura surged out from his body. At this moment, he was simply like a reincarnated god of war, invincible. Zhao Tianlong could feel the enormous pressure coming from Yang Zhan. At this moment, everyone below the martial stage was stupefied. Although they had been clamoring for Yang Zhan to step onto the martial stage, none of them had imagined that Yang Zhan would actually be able to contend against Zhao Tianlong. I never imagined that there would be such a figure amongst this batch of disciples. The group of elders sitting high above the clouds were all shocked. Zhao Tianlong was known as the #1 disciple amongst the green-robed disciples, but this new disciple was actually able to suppress him. Even Shangguan Feixiong's expression had become incomparably grave as he looked at Yang Zhan on the martial stage. 5-element spiritual body. Shangguan Feixiong's pupils suddenly shrank as he stared at Yang Zhan on the martial stage. At this moment, Gu Fei, who was mixed within the crowd, revealed a complacent smile. Today, he would let Yang Zhan amaze the world with a single brilliant feat that would be too fun. You can go down for me. Yang Zhan directly charged towards Zhao Tianlong. With just a single step, his aura soared to its peak. Swish! In the next instant, Yang Zhan's figure disappeared. At the same time, Zhao Tianlong felt all the hairs on his body stand on end. Without any warning, a figure suddenly appeared above his head. Then, a foot stomped down on his head. A violent earth element energy surged out from Yang Zhan's foot. The space beneath Yang Zhan's feet seemed to collapse from his stomp. Damn it! With a furious roar, Zhao Tianlong sent both his fists rumbling upwards. A dragon's roar seemed to ring out as 2 dragon-shaped fist energies rushed into the sky, instantly colliding against Yang Zhan's descending right leg. Boom! 2 dragon-shaped fist energies exploded in an instant, sending Yang Zhan flying high into the sky. Head down and feet up, he swooped down towards Zhao Tianlong like a divine eagle. A phantom of a golden divine eagle emerged from his body. Zhao Tianlong was incomparably shocked. How could this fellow's fleshly body be stronger than his? Could this fellow also be a body-tempering cultivator? At this moment, Yang Zhan's right hand stretched out. Like an eagle's claw, he grabbed at Zhao Tianlong's head. The divine eagle was incomparably ferocious and swift when it hunted its prey. Zhao Tianlong only had enough time to tilt his head to the side, allowing Yang Zhan's right claw to graze past his forehead. Zhao Tianlong felt a fiery pain on his forehead where Yang Zhan's finger had grazed. Reaching out to feel it, he discovered that there was actually blood on his hand. Zhao Tianlong's shock was no small matter. He hadn't been injured for a long time. He didn't expect that this fellow who had just joined the sect and had yet to acknowledge a master could actually injure him. Your body-tempering technique is only SOSO. Yang Zhan said indifferently. What did you say? Zhao Tianlong was both shocked and angry. This fellow actually dared to look down on his body-tempering technique. However, the battle strength displayed by this fellow was very shocking. This fellow had the capital to be arrogant. Could it be that this Yang Zhan has been acting dumb all this while? Below the stage, Wang Long, who was mixed in the crowd, couldn't help but be shocked and angry when he saw this scene. He didn't expect Yang Zhan to have such a cultivation base. It seemed that he had been fooled by Yang Zhan. No wonder this fellow had been following Gu Fei. Could it be that he and Gu Fei already knew each other before this? No one could answer Wang Long's question. Wang Long also didn't dare to ask Gu Fei or Yang Zhan. One should know that he and Yang Zhan belonged to two different worlds. Although Wang Long's cultivation base had broken through to the Xiantian realm, Yang Zhan was already a half-step immortal. The gap between them was too big. The current Yang Zhan was like a dragon in the sky in Wang Long's eyes, while he, Wang Long, had become a worm. "You're not my opponent." Yang Zhan looked at Zhao Tianlong indifferently, no longer attacking. At this time, the winner had been decided. Zhao Tianlong was being suppressed by Yang Zhan. This was an indisputable fact that everyone could see, but Zhao Tianlong was very unwilling. If he were to walk down the stage with just a word from Yang Zhan, how could he continue to mingle in the Yingtian courtyard? Cut the crap. You want me to admit defeat? Impossible. Zhao Tianlong was like a wounded beast staring at Yang Zhan. His battle intent was still as strong as before. In that case, let's fight. Yang Zhan didn't speak anymore. A person like Zhao Tianlong would only admit defeat after thoroughly defeating him. A few words alone wouldn't be able to scare this fellow. Tyrannical Dragon 9 Slaughter Fist. Zhao Tianlong roared. His fists were like dragons emerging from the sea, smashing towards Yang Zhan. The dragon-shaped fist energy rushed out from Yang Zhan's fist, and the two dragons intertwined together, causing the power it erupted to multiply. Before the fist energy even reached him, Yang Zhan's hair had already been blown away by the fist wind, causing it to flutter behind him. Good. Seeing this, Yang Zhan couldn't help but nod. This Zhao Tianlong was really talented in martial arts. He had actually comprehended some tricks to using his strength. Zhao Tianlong's control over his strength was better than any of the green-robed disciples of the Yingtian sect. This was the source of his confidence. However, he didn't know that because he had cultivated the Nine Heavens Tyrant body art, a major hidden injury had been left in his body. A group of elders had already declared that he would never be able to become an immortal in this lifetime. Zhao Tianlong was a person with great perseverance, but unfortunately he had crippled himself. Bam! Yang Zhan merely stretched out his right hand and blocked the incoming fist energy. His upper body only swayed slightly from the impact. All the spectators below the stage were dumbfounded. Even the green-robed disciples were staring at Yang Zhan on the stage, as if they were looking at a monster. This fellow actually, someone's voice was trembling. It wasn't that they weren't shocked. This move of Zhao Tianlong's could definitely smash a small mountain. Someone had once seen him use this move to kill a beast king. The beast kings of the Primogenita mountain range weren't comparable to the beast kings in the training grounds. The beast kings here were powerful existences that could easily kill half-step immortals. How unfathomable! Chapter 37:24. Yang Zhan's technique shocked everyone. Even the 12 elders, watching from the sky, were moved. This was a rare seedling that only appeared once every 500 years. Even the great elder had the thought of accepting him as a disciple, let alone the other elders. Then I'll let you witness my true strength. Zhao Tianlong's expression turned incomparably solemn when he saw Yang Zhan easily block the first strike of his tyrant Dragon 9 Death's Fist. In the next instant, an even more powerful energy fluctuation erupted from his body. His entire body had turned purplish-black, and there was a layer of faint purple light flowing on his skin that was not covered by his clothes. His muscles were bulging. Zhao Tianlong's entire body seemed to be filled with air as a sonic boom rang out from his body. His entire body suddenly grew a lot taller, as if he had transformed into an incomparably muscular giant. Yang Zhan raised his head to look at Zhao Tianlong, feeling extremely shocked. Zhao Tianlong's body-tempering technique was indeed unique. Unfortunately, it was a flawed body-tempering technique. An extremely berserk aura erupted from Zhao Tianlong's body. Everyone below the stage was incomparably shocked. Zhao Tianlong had actually held back. However, Gu Fei shook his head. Zhao Tianlong was exhausting his life force. If he frantically used this body-tempering technique, the hidden injuries on his body would only worsen. He was using his life to fight. Even if he could defeat Yang Zhan, he would not be able to live for long. At this moment, Zhao Tianlong completely ignored Yang Zhan's attack as he strode towards Yang Zhan. Humph! Yang Zhan's body jerked as the power of the 5 elements erupted. In the next instant, he threw a punch at the approaching Zhao Tianlong. In that instant, the power of the 5 elements frantically converged on his fist. With the power of the 5 elements combined, the energy fluctuations that erupted from Yang Zhan's fist instantly doubled. His fist moved rapidly in the air, causing faint ripples to appear everywhere it passed. The power of the 5 elements combined, a technique that is close to the Tao. The elders in the sky were shocked by Yang Zhan's punch. This was a battle technique that only an immortal could execute. Although it seemed simple, it contained the profundities of the 5 elements and touched upon the Tao. However, Zhao Tianlong did not dodge or evade Yang Zhan's mighty punch. Instead, his large hand directly grabbed at Yang Zhan's head. This was a completely lose-lose strategy. Bam! Yang Zhan's fist smashed into Zhao Tianlong's chest. In the next instant, Zhao Tianlong's feet left the ground as he was sent flying backwards. Without any suspense, the power behind Yang Zhan's punch was already close to that of an immortal. No matter how strong Zhao Tianlong was, it was impossible for him to block this punch. Under everyone's shocked gazes, Zhao Tianlong directly fell off the stage, his entire body deflating like a deflated balloon. Yang Zhan shook his head and said helplessly, "It's just a matter of 1 punch. Sigh, if I had known earlier, I wouldn't have fought with you for so long." At this moment, Zhao Tianlong had already landed on the ground. Staring at Yang Zhan on the stage, he slowly said, "I've lost." Is winning or losing that important? Yang Zhan shrugged. Zhao Tianlong wanted to say something, but his face suddenly flushed red. With a wah, he spat out a mouthful of blood. There seemed to be some clots in the blood. Zhao Tianlong is finished. The elders in the sky shook their heads when they saw this scene. Zhao Tianlong had forcefully used a big move and had already overdrawn his body. Now he had been punched by Yang Zhan, adding old wounds to new injuries. It was already amazing that Zhao Tianlong could still stand. Senior brother, an ordinary-looking disciple in green robes, walked up, placed his hand on Zhao Tianlong's shoulder, and left the square with him. This disciple in green robes was actually supporting Zhao Tianlong. It was just that he did it secretly. Gu Fei didn't say anything as he watched Zhao Tianlong's departing figure. However, his intuition told him that this Zhao Tianlong was definitely someone with a story. At this moment, Yang Zhan had defeated Zhao Tianlong with a single punch. This caused all the disciples in green robes and the new disciples to be dumbfounded and in disbelief. One had to know that Zhao Tianlong was known as the #1 existence in Ingtian courtyard below the immortal realm. He was invincible against those below the immortal realm. However, who would have thought that he would be defeated by a new disciple who had yet to acknowledge a master? Those disciples in green robes were naturally unconvinced, but they didn't dare to challenge Yang Zhan on the stage. Within the crowd, Wang Long's expression was somewhat complicated as he looked at Yang Zhan on the stage. This was the importance of standing on the right team. If he had firmly supported Gu Fei that day, then the person standing on the stage right now would be him. If anyone is unconvinced, feel free to come up. Yang Zhan looked at the crowd of cultivators below the stage and arrogantly said. No one spoke. Even Zhao Tianlong had been defeated by Yang Zhan. Who else would dare to court death? As for those white-robed Immortal Realm disciples, they couldn't act. No one is coming up? Doesn't that mean I'm number one? Yang said with surprise and joy. However, as he thought about it, his forehead began to sweat. This wasn't his true cultivation. If the elders of Ingtian Courtyard were to find out that he was faking it, the consequences would be dire. He wouldn't be able to withstand the fury of the courtyard's elders. As he thought of this, Yang couldn't help but look at Gu Fei below the stage. At this time no one spoke. Yang had single-handedly suppressed the group of Ingtian Courtyard disciples to the point where they didn't even dare to raise their heads. What kind of style was this? The new disciples were incomparably envious. Many of them even viewed Yang as their idol. He's invincible below the immortal realm. Up in the sky, the great elder who rarely spoke suddenly said such a sentence. Invincible below the immortal realm? Everyone was shocked to the extreme. This was definitely the highest evaluation. Just at this moment, a crane carrying a white-robed, white-haired old man descended from the sky and arrived in the sky above the square. The arrival of the man and the crane actually gave off a feeling of a spring breeze. The vitality of the world became exuberant. "Greetings, Hall Master!" Seeing the old man sitting on the back of the crane, the 12 elders sitting on the immortal clouds hurriedly stood up and saluted the old man. "Greetings, Master!" "Greetings, Hall Master!" In an instant, all the white-robed disciples of Ingtian Courtyard, regardless of whether they were the Hall Master's disciples, the elders' disciples, the true disciples, or the green-robed disciples, all bowed to the old man on the back of the crane. Hall Master? Seeing this scene, the new disciples on the square were all dumbfounded. Some of them hurriedly followed suit and bowed to the old man in fear, but some of them remained standing. Gu Fei and Yang didn't bow to the old man in the sky. Gu Fei only bowed to his parents and master. Other than them, he never bowed to anyone else. HM Chapter 37:25. The Hall Master's arrival shocked everyone in the Ingtian Courtyard. The 12 elders hurriedly stood up and saluted the Hall Master. All the disciples of the Ingtian Courtyard knelt down in front of the Courtyard Master, who was riding on the immortal crane. The new disciples also knelt down in front of them. However, there were 2 people who stood out because they didn't kneel at all. They were still standing there with their backs ramrod straight. These 2 people were naturally Gu Fei and Yang. Are these 2 guys stupid? Seeing that someone didn't salute the Hall Master in the sky, everyone thought that Gu Fei and Yang had been scared silly. Only Gu Fei knew that the person who could scare him silly in this world hadn't appeared yet. "All right, get up." The Hall Master's voice came down from the sky. His voice was calm and dignified. The 12 elders straightened their bodies. The white-robed and green-robed disciples, as well as the new disciples in the square, hurriedly stood up. In the eyes of these disciples, the Hall Master's words were like an imperial edict. The Hall Master actually came. Everyone had already guessed why the Hall Master had personally come. The second elder was incomparably nervous at this moment. He could ignore the other elders, including the first elder, but the Hall Master was different. This batch of disciples is not bad. Feixiong, after the competition is over, bring that junior brother on the stage to see me. The Hall Master said to Shangguan Feixiong. "Yes, Master." Shangguan Feixiong hurriedly replied. This. The second elder was dumbfounded. "Hall Master, you can't do this." The other elders looked at the second elder with schadenfreude. They didn't compete with the second elder for disciples, but when the Hall Master wanted to take a disciple, no one dared to say anything. Then the Hall Master rode the immortal crane and soared into the sky. He flew to the sacred mountain in the sky and disappeared. The immortal Tao aura that was filled with vitality also dissipated in the void, as if it had never appeared. The Hall Master left just like that? Everyone was baffled. There was no need for the Hall Master to come personally. Couldn't he just send a voice transmission to Shangguan Feixiong? What should we do? Gu Fei wasn't scared out of his wits, but Yang Zhan was completely dumbfounded. Who would dare to refuse the Hall Master's summons? But once the Elder Hall Master saw through him, wouldn't he be dead for sure? What first place in the competition? What elder's favor? To Yang Zhan, all of this was fart. He hurriedly jumped down from the stage and arrived at Gu Fei's side. Brother Fei, Yang Zhan was truly anxious. When he thought of going to see the Hall Master, he was so terrified that his legs began to tremble. Calm down, I'm here. What are you afraid of? Gu Fei's voice resounded in Yang Zhan's mind. But, Brother Fei, Yang Zhan still wanted to say something. All right, let's leave it at that. Perhaps there will be an unexpected surprise when you meet the Academy Master, Gu Fei continued. Sigh, I hope it's not a scare. Yang Zhan said helplessly. At this time, a group of people gradually gathered around Yang Zhan. Boss, are you taking in underlings? A dark-skinned young cultivator came over and said, Scram! Yang Zhan snappily said. The young cultivator hastily shrunk his neck and retreated. Seeing that someone was rebuffed by Yang Zhan, the others naturally did not dare to approach. But at this time, these new disciples were filled with reverence towards Yang Zhan. Even the green-robed disciples were apprehensive towards Yang Zhan, not daring to rashly provoke him. No one would have thought that Yang Zhan would be favored by the Hall Master. If he could become the Hall Master's inner disciple, he would definitely reach the heavens in a single bound. Countless low-level disciples of Yingtian Courtyard were envious of Yang Zhan, especially those who knew him. Wang Long was incomparably depressed. After a while, with Shangguan Feixiong presiding over the competition continued. In a short while, the entire square became lively again. Among the new disciples, there were indeed a few outstanding characters. Although they were not as abnormal as Yang Zhan, they still could not be underestimated. After a little more than 2 hours, this unruly competition came to an end. Although this competition seemed very lively, there were very few people who truly attracted attention. Previously, Feng Yu had been defeated by Zhao Tianlong, but as the descendant of the third elder, he could naturally become an elder's inner disciple. The best seedlings had already been reserved by the Hall Master, so the 12 elders had no interest in the remaining disciples. Among the 12 elders, the 12th elder accepted 3 disciples, and the 11th elder accepted 1 disciple. The other elders simply had no interest in accepting disciples. Junior brother, come with me. At the end of the competition, Shangguan Feixiong came, looking for Yang Zhan. Yang Zhan had no choice but to follow behind Shangguan Feixiong and leave the square. Shangguan Feixiong brought Yang Zhan and soared into the sky, flying towards the sacred mountain in the sky. Soon, they arrived at the peak of the sacred mountain and landed on the open space in front of the palace. At this time, Gu Fei, who was on the square, suddenly raised his head and looked towards the sacred mountain in the sky. His gaze seemed to pierce through the void, as if he could see the scene at the peak of the sacred mountain. If I want to play, I'll play big. Gu Fei muttered to himself. He retracted his gaze, and a cold, evil smile appeared on his face. At the peak of the sacred mountain, Shangguan Feixiong brought Yang Zhan directly to the palace in front of them. It was a huge hall, and the old man sitting on the throne in the middle of the hall was the Hall Master. The red-crowned crane was nowhere to be seen. When Shangguan Feixiong brought Yang Zhan to the door of the hall, the door suddenly opened. Shangguan Feixiong brought Yang Zhan into the hall. Gu Fei did not retract the strand of what he had planted in Yang Zhan's body, and Yang Zhan's cultivation and battle prowess did not show any signs of diminishing. Greetings, Master. Greetings, Hall Master. Shangguan Feixiong and Yang Zhan hurriedly knelt towards the throne. Rise. The Hall Master waved his hand and said, Are you willing to take me as your master? The Hall Master looked at Yang Zhan and asked calmly. At this time, there were still 12 elders standing in the hall. Ah, Yang Zhan was stunned when he heard this. Junior brother, are you still not willing? Shangguan Feixiong hurriedly pulled Yang Zhan back. He's probably too happy to be stupid. The hall master's disciple has reached the heavens in a single step. The 12 elders whispered, especially the second elder. Now that the hall master had interfered, his plan to take in a disciple would immediately be ruined. He felt extremely depressed. Junior brother! Seeing that Yang Zhan was still hesitating, Shangguan Feixiong was a little unhappy. The hall master's master has taken a liking to you, and that's your fortune. Yet you're still hesitating? I'm not willing. Yang Zhan suddenly seemed to have changed into a different person. He directly raised his head and looked at the hall master on the throne. What? Chapter 37:26. At the peak of the Yingtian sect's 36th monastery's upper courtyard, everyone was petrified, staring dumbfoundedly at Yang Zhan. This fellow was actually unwilling to take the hall master as his master? Had he gone crazy? That was the hall master, the 36th monastery's hall master. Within the entire monastery, he had the highest status, the highest cultivation base, and the highest combat ability. Did I hear wrongly? This little fellow isn't willing to take the hall master as his master? The second elder stared in disbelief at Yang Zhan, who was standing in the main hall. Second senior apprentice brother, your chance has come, ha. Third elder Feng Feiyang mocked. His eyes flashed with a bright light. What does this little guy want? He actually dared to ignore the hall master's favor? Junior apprentice brother, you, Shangguan Feixiong, who was standing beside Yang Zhan, was dumbfounded. This was a chance to reach the heavens in a single step. Just how many people had fought so hard to obtain the hall master's attention? It was rare for the hall master to take the initiative to accept a disciple. This was something that hadn't happened in the past 500 years. If it was anyone else, they would probably go crazy with joy. But Yang Zhan had actually refused the hall master. Shangguan Feixiong had an urge to slap him to death. The hall master's other disciples were also in the palace. They were all furiously glaring at Yang Zhan. The fact that the hall master had taken a liking to him was his good fortune. But this fellow didn't know what was good for him. The first elder didn't say anything. He just calmly watched. He was the first elder, who was above just one person. It would be impossible for him to not have any ambitions for the hall master's position. However, whether it was in terms of cultivation base or combat ability, the hall master suppressed the first elder. It wasn't impossible for the first elder to stand out, but it would be difficult. At this time, the first elder was also happy to watch a play. It had been a long time since he had seen the hall master suffer. The other elders' expressions all became grave. Just what was going on with this fellow? Could he be a spy from the Burning Heaven sect who had infiltrated the monastery? The Burning Heaven sect was the Yingtian sect's mortal enemy. The Brahma sect's patriarch had fought with the Yingtian sect countless times, with both sides winning and losing. Neither side was able to do anything to the other, but the Burning Heaven sect was a corrupt devil sect, and in order to eradicate the Yingtian sect, they would stop at nothing. For the Burning Heaven sect's people to infiltrate the Yingtian monastery wasn't strange at all. Are you really not willing? The hall lord who sat on the throne in the center of the great hall stared down at Yang Zhan. His gaze was incomparably sharp as a powerful immortal might gushed forth from him. Everyone was shocked, and the disciples felt like they were about to suffocate. Master! The disciples looked at the dean on the throne with awe in their eyes. Their master's cultivation was truly unfathomable. Even if they cultivated for another 1,000 years, it would be impossible for them to have such a cultivation. The Academy Master was indeed the Academy Master. Just a strand of his immortal pressure was enough to make everyone in the hall breathless. However, there was one exception, and that person was Yang Zhan. Just as the college master was inadvertently releasing his immortal might, a black-robed youth sitting under a tree in the lower courtyard suddenly opened his eyes and looked towards the divine mountain in the sky. Is the show about to begin? The black-clothed young man smiled, then withdrew his gaze, closed his eyes, and continued to sit cross-legged under the tree. At this time, a shocking change occurred in the hall in the sky. At this moment, Yang Zhan seemed to have become a completely different person. He suddenly raised his head to look at the hall master, a cold smile on his face. "How dare you?" Shangguan Feixiong, who was standing beside Yang Zhan, was instantly enraged. His right hand stretched out, directly pressing down on Yang Zhan's shoulder. At the same time, he sent a kick towards Yang Zhan's calf, wanting to press Yang Zhan to the ground. Shangguan Feixiong was ruthless. He wanted to teach Yang Zhan a lesson. Since Yang Zhan dared to look down on his master, he was already being merciful by not killing Yang Zhan. However, in the next moment, Shangguan Feixiong discovered that he was actually pressing down on a divine mountain. He couldn't even move Yang Zhan, and his kick had already landed on Yang Zhan's calf. Shangguan Feixiong felt as if his kick had landed on a divine steel plate. Not only was he unable to injure Yang Zhan, but the sole of his foot was also in extreme pain. How is this possible? Shangguan Feixiong was shocked to the extreme. Humph. With a wave of his right hand, Shangguan Feixiong, who was still in a state of shock, was directly sent flying out of the great hall, crashing through the doors. The eyes of the disciples in the great hall almost fell to the ground. Shangguan Feixiong was the eldest senior brother of the Yingtian courtyard, and his cultivation was enough to contend against the elders. However, the eldest senior brother of the Yingtian courtyard was actually sent flying by Yang Zhan. At this time, even the 12 elders were shocked. The hall master's eyes lit up like the stars in the sky. "Who exactly are you?" The hall master stared at Yang Zhan and said in a deep voice. An overwhelming killing intent surged towards Yang Zhan. An entire great hall immediately turned cold. The 12 elders were on their guard, and powerful immortal Tao auras spread throughout the great hall. "Who am I?" Yang Zhan tilted his head and thought for a moment, then shrugged his shoulders and said, "I'm someone you can't afford to offend." "Someone we can't afford to offend?" The second elder stared at Yang Zhan with a murderous look. This guy actually dared to play with him. If he didn't kill this guy, how could he appease his anger? "All right, if you kneel and beg for mercy, I will spare your lives. Otherwise, I will kill you directly," Yang Zhan said impatiently. "Go to hell." The second elder roared, and an immortal light rushed out from his body, turning into a fire lotus, smashing towards Yang Zhanfei in the hall. He had endured for a long time, and finally he couldn't bear it anymore and directly attacked. As soon as the fire lotus appeared, the temperature of the entire hall immediately soared. Everyone could feel the oppressive heat wave, especially those elders and disciples. They felt as though the mortal elemental energy in their body was ignited, and their whole body felt like it was being roasted. Yang Zhan smiled and directly opened his mouth and sucked. The fire lotus was actually swallowed into his stomach in one gulp. What? The second elder was stunned. What was going on with this guy? He actually swallowed his 9 heavens fire lotus? How was this possible? Fire lotus from the heavens, burn the sky, and boil the sea. The second elder roared and directly rushed towards Yang Zhan. His large sleeves fluttered, and one fire lotus after another rushed out from his body, flying towards Yang Zhan in an overwhelming manner. At this time, the great elder directly waved his sleeves and directly activated the great formation in the great hall, blocking the vast and mighty power of the immortal Tao. Otherwise, the elders and disciples would suffer a calamity. However, a scene that made everyone's eyeballs almost fall to the ground appeared. Yang Zhan directly opened his mouth and sucked again. Countless fire lotuses were actually swallowed into his body, leaving not a single one behind.